So, another crazy thing happened to me recently. It was a Sunday morning, and I fried eggs for breakfast, but something was definitely wrong. I wasn't sure if it was the eggs or me, though. Now, you've tried fried eggs, right? They normally taste like, eggs. But that time, along with the eggs, I could also taste lemon, vanilla yogurt, and even some paper. And it's not as good as you might think. Yogurt tastes nice by itself, but together with eggs, it's gross. Whatever was the reason, I decided I'd be okay with just a tea for that day. But as soon as I tried it, I spat it out. What is that? Did I put a spoonful of black pepper there? I needed some water ASAP. I got a glass and, thankfully, it was just a regular glass of water. I tried to eat some strawberries, but along with the normal strawberry taste, they had a taste of hot chili. That's not a good combination, to be honest. It looked like something happened to all of the food in the house. I also had an orange juice, so I drank a glass of it. Surprisingly, it tasted totally fine. Suddenly, I got a weird thought. Do I taste colors? It was so crazy and strange that I needed to check this theory immediately. I admit I licked the white back of my cell phone, but it really did taste like vanilla yogurt, just like the egg. So, it was true. I could taste colors that would mix with every food's original taste and mess it up. I wanted to go to the doctor, but although this new superpower was weird, it was still a bit exciting. Also, I couldn't wait to figure out what other tastes are like. So, I went to a store and got myself a pack of markers. I got to the table, opened the yellow one, and licked it. It did taste like lemon. So, I licked each one and made a list. Pink tasted like strawberry. Red was chili, orange was an orange. Blue was very bitter, light blue was salty, and violet was blueberry. Black was black pepper, beige, nut muss, gray, paper, and green tasted like puke. Well, I had to conclude I don't eat green food from now on. Not that I was really sad about it though. Only one color was left, the brown one. I was very reluctant to try it, but I had to figure it out. Whew. To my relief, it had the taste of coffee. Now, I don't like coffee, but it could be worse. I knew I had to go see my doctor, but I kind of wanted to live with this superpower for a while. It doesn't happen to you every day, So I decided I'll go to the doctor tomorrow. And today, I had to learn how to live with this ability. I had to avoid putting in my mouth anything black, gray, blue, and green. Not only food, but the dishes and cutlery as well. And I had to figure out what food I can actually eat, because I didn't like strawberries that tasted like chili pepper. So I went to the store to get some transparent dishes. While walking, I was thinking about my menu for today. Orange juice works, strawberry, vanilla, and lemon yogurt too. I can make a fruit salad with mango, raspberries, grapes, banana, and yogurt. But that was all I could come up with. As I was thinking, I was biting my lip and found out it tasted like strawberry. In the store, it was pretty easy to find a transparent bowl, but spoons and forks were a problem. I think I went to every store in my city until I could finally find them. As soon as I got back home, I cut all the fruits and made a fruit salad. I hadn't eaten much that morning, as you remember. Honestly, it was the best salad ever. I saved some money because I didn't have to buy berries, oranges, and lemons, but the taste was there. As I was enjoying my meal, the phone rang. It was my grandma, and she invited me for dinner that evening. I tried to say I couldn't make it, but she wouldn't listen. Grandmas. It's just impossible to skip when they want to feed you. So she said she didn't want to hear any excuses and that I had to be at her house by 6. This meant I couldn't wait until tomorrow. I had to go to the doctor right then and get rid of this superpower before my grandma made me eat puke and drink tea with black pepper. I checked the time. I had only 20 minutes before my doctor left, and the clinic was several blocks away. I finished my salad and ran out of the apartment. I got to the clinic just 5 minutes before it closed for the day and asked if my doctor could see me because I had an emergency. To my relief, he agreed. When I told him that I could taste colors, he looked at me puzzled and probably thought it was a stupid prank. Then I told him the whole story about the fried egg for breakfast and how I bought and tasted all the markers, that violet was blueberry and green was not an apple as he might have thought, that I spent hours trying to find a transparent spoon and fork. To be honest, in my head it sounded better and was making much more sense. The doctor was silent and kinda suspicious. He measured my temperature, my blood pressure, and looked at my mouth. "So, you've been eating markers," he smiled. Oops, I guess my tongue was the color of a rainbow. Well, that really doesn't sound normal for a grown-up. The doctor obviously didn't believe me, so he just let me go, recommending a good night's sleep. So, I guess I was stuck with it, and I had to go to Grandma's. Unfortunately, there was no way she'd feed me strawberry yogurt for dinner. I got home to get my new cutlery, so at least I didn't have to taste paper when eating with my grandma's gray metal fork. I had another couple of hours, so I did some Googling, but still couldn't find any solution or even research on my condition. I thought that maybe I could wash it off, so I drank a gallon of water. But it didn't help, so I went to Grandma's place feeling doomed. Plus, I really needed to go. She was happy to see me and announced that she had my favorite broccoli pancakes for me. Yeah, maybe yesterday they had been my favorite, but definitely not anymore. I tried to say I'm not hungry and I could just drink some orange juice, but of course, she wouldn't listen. She gave me a plate with 5 pancakes and a cup of black tea. Suddenly, I got an idea of how I could get rid of at least the pepper taste. If I put a piece of lemon in the tea, I'll get brown. Therefore, I'll have a coffee tea instead of a pepper tea. I was lucky. My grandma did have the lemon, so the tea problem was solved. But the worst part was the pancakes, and my grandma was looking at me all excited and pleased. I had to eat. I was trying hard to control my facial expression and look very happy, as if I was eating the best food on the planet, even though it was the most terrible meal in my life. And yes, I was drinking a lot of my coffee tea. Well, 3 cups. But when I finished and thanked my grandma, she was so happy that I understood eating puke was worth it. Turned out my grandma actually had a vanilla yogurt, so I ate all she had to get rid of the taste I still had in my mouth after the pancakes. On my way home, biting my strawberry lip, I was thinking, I had to come up with a plan on how to get rid of this ability. But I couldn't think of anything. So, as soon as I got home, I just went to sleep, even though it was only 9 p.m. I slept for 11 hours, and the next morning, I made myself a fruit salad with yogurt. Again. I guess from then on, it was my dish for the rest of my life. I was eating it with my transparent fork and watching a TV show, when I suddenly realized I couldn't taste any lemon there, and no orange as well. I bit my lip and it didn't have a taste anymore. With my hand shaking, I opened the fridge to get my strawberries. I ate one and it tasted like a regular normal strawberry. No chili pepper. Everything was back to normal like it never happened. But I swear it did. Really?
If you think about it, your life is a lot like a video game. You could say it's like a role-playing game most of all. All you need to do is add the right icons to your screen, like your health and energy bars. There's your inventory as well, with your phone, wallet, and keys in it. And of course, everyone's got a skill bar. But let's start from the very beginning. Even when you're a baby, the game difficulty is already set to hard. All your skills are at level 0, and your health bar is tiny, which is why you only sleep or eat most of the time to make sure it grows. When you reach level 1, you unlock the ability to walk. But the world map is still closed to you because there are lots of dangers you're just not ready for yet. It turns out, this game has a really long demo mode called Childhood. Most game features are locked for now. Nearly all of your actions are set for you by your parents. They're like quest givers who help you gain the experience you need to make progress. Ignoring their instructions can make leveling up real tough. But if you're polite enough, they'll give you your first gold coins. As long as you're a child, you'll constantly be leveling up, but of course it takes a really long time. Your health and skill bars get bigger as you go to school. It's not the most exciting Magic Academy, but the students there still carry out quests and learn new abilities. Congratulations! You've reached level 18! Now we're really getting into this role-playing game. You're facing a classic video game choice. You have to select your character class and the skill path you like the most to help you conquer the world. While lots of games have different character classes, most of us end up being the same one in real life. The adventurer who travels the world doing different tasks to earn gold and experience. And you still have tons of quests to do. That's right, it's also time to leave behind the safe part of the map where you grew up. This unfamiliar world is a little like a dark forest full of enemies. The trouble is, the bad guys out there are sometimes hard to overcome. These monsters have names like responsibility, work, and money. They keep coming back even when you thought you'd finally learned how to deal with them. But if you didn't slack off at school, one day you'll overcome them all. Imagine you're in a restaurant and your date asks you if you like animals. You confidently reply, "I love cats." Your date sighs and says, "I'm more of a dog person." Quick, go to the menu, reload the checkpoint, and change your answer. Sorry, but you can't do that. Remember that this is one tough video game, and you're still playing on hard mode. This means that you only have one life. You can't just save and then go back if something goes wrong. Every decision and every action has consequences for you and the other players around you. But that just makes it more interesting. Interaction with other players is one of the most important parts of the game. But remember, you need to be a little careful here. The admins are a lot stricter than for other games. Breaking the rules and upsetting people could lead to a completely different game mode. And there isn't much to do in this version, except look at 4 walls and a grating on the window. On the plus side, the character customization in this game is fantastic. You can change your hairstyle and hair color, get tattoos and piercings, really anything you want. Oh, and the clothes? There's just no limit to the designer's imagination. With each new level you reach, you open up new abilities and new quests. You encounter tougher challenges, but get better rewards, like more gold or a bigger house. But there's one quest line that's really unique in this game. When you feel experienced enough, you can start a family and even create a new character. You'll transfer some of your skills to them and be their companion in the game until they're ready to go into the dark forest to fight the monsters on their own. You'll never get to control this character though. In this game, the plot isn't always about you. The AI does what it wants. There's a bunch of other stuff about this game that's really unusual as well. Let's take the graphics. They're just incredible, like Ultra HD. And the resolution is absolutely stunning. But the gameplay is pretty complicated compared to other games. You need to check your health bar all the time, build relationships with other characters, earn gold, and make sure you rest on time. But the story is the most interesting part. It's totally up to you what happens. Sure, it can be boring if you just lie on the couch and watch other people play, but try hard enough and your character could become really important. So you need to put the work in if you want it to be an interesting experience. But there are lots of cool things in other adventure games that are missing from this one. For example, fast travel. Imagine what it would be like if we had this option. You wake up tired, but you have to go to work. Just go over to the portal and select the right location. Boom, you're already there. I think it's definitely time someone invented this. And we could sure use some cheat codes as well. Of course, no one likes a cheater on the server, but imagine how cool it would be. Don't have enough money? Just type in the cheat and watch the numbers in your bank account double. Feeling sick? Don't waste your health potion, just use the cheat and your health bar is full again. But I've got to admit, playing it life like this would become boring. Imagining life as a video game helps us understand it a lot. A lot of what we do is about setting small tasks and looking for ways to accomplish them. With rewards and experience, you move on to more challenging quests. Your skills, gold, and health bars aren't infinite though, and you need to manage your resources carefully to reach the next level. Some people think that computer games can be really harmful. They say that gamers spend too much time in their virtual worlds and forget about reality. But there are actually a lot of benefits from playing games from time to time. Many of them are designed in the same way as our real lives, and they have plenty of features that teach us useful things. Games always reward us for our hard work. Playing a game from start to finish and making all that progress along the way can help you understand that it takes time and energy to get what you want. Hard work always pays off. Another useful thing that games provide is communication. Hundreds of millions of people play online games that bring them together in groups and teams. They have to achieve cohesion and use good teamwork to pass through a dungeon or win a match. Competitive games can help people learn to communicate and make compromises. And although it's all just for fun, this is exactly what we have to learn to do in real life as well. Only instead of a dungeon with a scary monster, we have to survive a day at the office with an angry boss. And one more thing. It's been proven that a person's strategic thinking and decision-making can improve when they play video games. In one experiment, a group of 50 young adults who had never played games before were asked to play an action game for 50 hours. Another group played a slow strategy game. The results showed that the action game helped to improve the young people's perception of visual information. Their decision-making skills also improved. This was thanks to the fast pace of the action game. In these kind of games, a large number of events happen one after another, forcing the player to act and make decisions. This can have an effect on people's real lives.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We'll be ready to take off in 3, 2, 1. Living on a spaceship sounds like a sci-fi movie topic, but gradually turns into a plan for the distant future dream. Let's imagine how it would be. Without further ado, I'll start with the light. On Earth, thanks to the atmosphere, the sky scatters the sunlight, so we get light in different directions. Then there are shadows, contrast, and ambient light. In a spaceship, however, there's no sky to create that cool ambient light. When you're in a spacecraft inside a solar system, one side of the ship can be lightened by the sun or another star, and one side can stay in the shadow. You can think of it as the crescent moon. If your spacecraft manages to go far away from any solar system, you might say goodbye to the bright side of the ship. You would be very far from all stars, so the ship is going to fly in the deep darkness. Don't worry though, the advanced technology will probably find a way to imitate the sunlight. Maybe designers will place LED light panels similar to windows, and inhabitants of the ship wouldn't notice the difference. What about people? A study revealed that a crew of 160 people could create a viable population for 200 years. Here, the important thing is to select the crew members from a large gene pool. No two passengers should be closer than 6th or 7th degree cousins. This is a projection from our day. Who knows, maybe hundreds of years later, whole countries will live in a spaceship. Your neighbor country in the world will be your neighbor in space. This reminds me of the scene from Thor Ragnarok, when the Asgardians who survived Hela escaped with the Grandmaster's ship. They went to Earth to settle down. Maybe we would go to Proxima Centauri b. It's an exoplanet, which is the term used to define planets beyond our solar system. Proxima b is in another star system, and some scientists do believe it has the potential. Some of them believe that there's a possibility that liquid water exists on the surface of a planet. It's important because this planet is our nearest neighboring exoplanet. Yeah, the nearest one, but it's almost 25 trillion miles away. To better understand this proximity, I'll give you a comparison. Currently, one of the fastest spaceships, called New Horizons, goes a whopping speed of more than 30,000 miles per hour. But even with this speed, it would take thousands of years to get to Proxima b. Let's hope we figure out how to warp the space-time equation by then. If I'm realistic, the first option is more likely. Let's assume we made a trip with our fastest spaceships. This would still be a couple of 100-year journey. This leads to another minor problem: the lifespan of humans. The same crew cannot make it to the end of the ride. Here, generation ships shine as a solution. A community of adults enter the ship, then their children and their children. You know, until humanity finally reaches the new planet. There are two other alternatives. If researchers somehow made a way to make people live for centuries, we wouldn't need generation ships. Similarly, there could be a system to freeze people. It'll take 20,000 people to start a healthy population on a new planet. For now, I want to stick with the first scenario. Here's how it would be to live in a generation spacecraft. Dating wouldn't be as romantic as it is on Earth. There's probably a geneticist who will regulate reproduction. Freedom of choice in general would be decreased. The rules will be strict. In every generation, there should be certain tasks to manage. Someone should be a doctor, and someone else should be a plumber. New generations may go under a career planning test. Everyone would be assigned occupations based on their merits, aptitude, passions, and available jobs. It reminds me of Snowpiercer, but hopefully things would go humanely and better in this version. People all need water, and they'll create waste. By then, maybe we wouldn't rely on plastic. Plus, recycling may be on another level. Still, we will need water. A healthy human needs almost 300 gallons of water per year. It's not like they'll stop by on a planet and refill the water reserves. So how can spaceship residents solve this problem? There are already systems to recycle some astronauts' waste into pure water. The next issue is infirmary. A spaceship might have almost no bacteria or microbes. People need them for a stronger immune system. If they get too isolated and land on a planet, they may have difficulty coping with the potential conditions there. Shielding carries importance too. Deep space is a radioactive place. Our planet has a magnetic field that protects us from DNA frying waves. Out in the open, the spaceship will need a strong shield. Maybe we'll be able to create some sort of force field. NASA is working on systems to grow plants in space. We will probably see special sections dedicated to farming and livestock. I also feel like this type of ship would also carry flora and fauna samples too. Who knows, maybe there'll be specific parks and different mini ecosystems. This would be great for the sanity of people on the ship. I mean, it's great to maintain the existence of the human race. But, existential crises can mess with the passengers. They can eat their space sandwiches in the park and relax a bit with the sound of tweeting birds. Not just a garden, the young passengers might need a playground and school. Well, in this case, cabins, to get an education. They'll probably have a whole new curriculum, How to Stay Alive on a Foreign Planet 101. By the time we have this ship AI, and high-tech robots will probably be more popular than ever, there might be self-propagating robots. We can send these robots to our potentially new planet first and see how it turns out. We can even send robot teams to multiple worlds and see which one has a better habitat. I admit, generation ships look like an idea derived from Hollywood blockbusters, but there's an initiative called the 100-Year Starship Project. Mark G. Millis, the founder of the Tau Zero Foundation, is one of the participants involved in this project. They designed a probe named the Icarus. It has the theoretical capability to accelerate to 1/10 or 1/5 the speed of light. Although the current design of Icarus is not particularly sleek, resembling a skyscraper-sized behemoth composed mainly of rows and clusters of spherical fuel tanks. Millis explains that it's not a definitive representation of what an interstellar craft may look like, but rather the design that makes the most sense to build initially. When it comes to designing starships for humans, gravity is a key consideration in preventing the erosion of bone and muscle density. The solution is to create gravity with a rotating cabin or centrifuge, but it must be large enough to consistently simulate Earth's gravity to avoid disorientation and other health issues. Is there an arrival plan? Assuming that we land to Europa or Proxima b, the crew and the passengers need to be prepared for different scenarios. There should be equipment to scan the territory, or even self-defense gadgets to protect themselves from potentially hostile life forms. Once they successfully arrive, they need tools to build their homes too. When they finally arrive at their new planet, they might start advanced technology to travel around other planets. Hi Mom, I brought you a rock as a gift from the surface of Mars. There could be new occupations and a live space travel guide. And we might need some type of document, like a visa, to enter other habitable planets. There's a meteorite rain expected, so stay at your base for the next 2 years, says the newscaster. Okay, I'll calm down here. So how would you picture a vessel capable of ferrying humans from one solar system to another? Would it have some sort of wings, or would it look like a rocket? Tell me more about the design in your mind.
The ocean is turning red hot. You try to get closer for a better look, but you start feeling the air getting hotter and hotter, like reaching into an oven. And the sand is so hot that your rubber slippers start melting. The ocean's somehow turned into steamy, hot, gooey lava. You start running inland and see a frenzy of people running wild. See, in reality, lava is made of molten rocks from below the Earth's surface. Deep inside our planet, like the distance between New York and Philadelphia deep, the underground heat from the core melts rocks the same way the sun melts ice cream. When these rocks melt, their temperatures can reach around 2200 degrees Fahrenheit. But don't worry, that only happens really deep under the ground, and only in some specific areas, mostly around the Atlantic Ocean. And it only pops out of the ground when there's so much pressure that it flows up to the surface as a gooey orange super hot liquid called lava that usually erupts through a volcano's neck. But somehow, the entire ocean is made of lava now. And although from a really far away distance, it looks pretty cool to look at, it's really dangerous. First of all, say goodbye to the beautiful blue waves and the ocean currents. Unlike water, lava is thicker, closer to creamy peanut butter in texture, so the wind can't move it around like it used to. But that also means that nothing can sink or swim in it. So even if some ocean creatures could withstand the super high temperatures of lava, they won't be able to live inside of it. They'll either be submerged or float on the surface instead, depending on their density. So, all our marine friends and other creatures that used to call the ocean home will need to find another body of water to live in if they want to survive. Actually, the only animals on this planet that could possibly survive the heat of lava would be the tardigrades. These cute microscopic creatures can survive in any extreme environment on this planet. From frozen icy glaciers to hot and fiery volcanoes. They can even survive in outer space under the cosmic rays. You run away from the beach along with everyone else nearby. The atmosphere is getting thicker and it's not easy to see around you. You think to yourself, I should have stayed home. But home isn't exactly safe either. The heat radiating from all the lava alone would be intolerable for miles. So no more houses by the sea and beach resorts. You're gonna want to make sure you live as far away from the ocean as possible. Most of the coastal cities would become instantly uninhabitable, especially areas touching the ocean with more than one side. Places like Florida, California, and Central America would become mostly unbearable to live in. And that's not to mention island life. Most islands would be so hot that no animal or plant could survive. 97% of the planet was made up of ocean water, and it now all turned to lava. No place on Earth can hold snow anymore, as the planet would look like a glowing orange lava ball. Temperatures would rise so much that the furthest place from the shores and even the highest peaks will still feel like the hottest day in a desert. As you keep running away from the ocean, you realize that maybe you're dreaming, but you look at your skin and see so much redness. Even if you run for miles, the heat will still catch up to you. All the offshore oil rigs and ships in the middle of the oceans will face plenty of problems too. Their metallic composition would simply glow red and melt instantly when in contact with hot lava. And even if it doesn't melt, you better hope nobody happens to be on it. But in any event like that, they would have evacuated everyone. Meanwhile, at the North and South Poles, where the planet is at its coldest, all the ice that was covering the ocean is instantly melting in contact with the lava. It would then cool down and solidify into rocky black landmasses called igneous rocks that are often glassy in texture. The moment the hot lava cools down, huge clouds of acidic steam and gases get released into the air, covering the sky. Scientists call those lays, which is a combination of the words lava and haze. Kinda like when you exit the shower and all the heat comes in contact with the cold outside air, creating a haze. Except this one would cover the whole North and South poles, and it would be super toxic. It sometimes even contains tiny glass particles that are extremely hazardous. And this haze can travel around the world with strong enough wind and cover almost the entire northern hemisphere. It could also cover the southern part of New Zealand, Argentina, South Africa, and Australia. Flying an airplane through this gas wouldn't be the best idea. The heat alone emitted from the lava would be enough to cause major damage to the exterior and affect the airplane's hardware. It's a good thing you found your trusty oxygen container. The air is barely breathable at this point. You make your way to your car and drive away as fast as you can. But even your car's taken some damage. You drive out to the countryside, where the atmosphere hasn't been affected by the lava yet. But even all the way out here, the temperature is changing. The river you used to see on your weekly hikes is drying up. The plants around you are losing their green lush. The animals around have migrated to a different place. Rivers flowing into the ocean would simply create mounds of glassy igneous rocks upon contact, permanently creating natural dams. The rest of the water inland, like in ponds and lakes, would eventually evaporate over time. With the rise in temperatures and no rainfall, it would be the end of water on the planet as we know it. The huge mass of ocean water plays a major role in creating clouds and rainfall. Without water in the atmosphere, the sun's heat would add to the lavas. The world would be a huge barren wasteland. The nights would be hot and the days even hotter.
Hop on the bright side of life together with our brand new tees, hoodies, and more. Click the link to pick your choice.
Still, lava cools down eventually in contact with the cool air. So soon enough, the surface would start forming a thin layer of black crust that would gradually thicken over the years. The thicker the lava, the longer it takes to completely cool down on the inside. It would still be super hot though, but at least if you touch it, you won't be directly touching the burning lava. That's actually how many islands were formed, like the Hawaiian Islands, for example. They're fully formed by lava erupting from below the ocean that dried over hundreds of thousands of years. It accumulated layers over layers of solidified lava from below the ocean until it rose above the surface, forming islands and even mountains. As we speak, a new landmass in Hawaii is being formed by an active volcano. Scientists expect it to be a new fully formed island in about 10,000 years. So now, the view that used to be the blue ocean turned into steamy glowing orange slime that will in turn quickly transform into a solid black wasteland. But don't think you can easily walk over that ocean. It could take hundreds of years for it to fully cool down and turn into solid rock. Until then, walking on that dried lava crust would be similar to walking on a frozen lake, except that in this case, one misstep would cause you to fall into boiling hot lava instead of ice-cold water. Some regions would even take thousands of years to fully solidify. The Mariana Trench, the deepest region of the ocean, is about a whopping 43,000 feet deep. It would actually take at least 5,000 years for that much lava to completely cool down. There are many planets out there that are so-called lava planets. A recently discovered planet, K2-141b, has magma oceans, supersonic winds up to 3,000 miles per hour, and even rocky rains. That's right, the planet is so hot that it vaporizes rocks and rains them back down. Keep in mind that this planet is much closer to the sun than our planet is. Maybe their oceans once turned into lava overnight.
Behold the distant future. Yep, humans have successfully colonized Mars and the Moon. Problems with overpopulation and hunger on Earth are solved. But soon, a new threat looms over our planets, and the Moon. Anyway, scientists have figured out that in 150 years, the Sun will explode and destroy our entire solar system. Bummer. There's enough time to build a fleet of huge spaceships and evacuate everyone. But it's not enough time to come up with some sort of sci-fi space jump. It's been a long time since people found a new, potentially livable planet, and the nearest one's a several million years ride away. There's no other choice. Humankind is evacuated into gargantuan spaceships, and the infinitely long voyage begins. A few decades pass. We leave the solar system and watch our sun explode. A huge flash and that's it. There's no more light. Just small, faraway stars and the infinite black depths of space. All ships are on a synced autopilot that won't go off course no matter what. Even if everyone on board were to disappear, the ship would still arrive at its destination. So, the upside, humans will survive for millions more years. The downside? Because of all of that time spent on space transports, will look different, totally different. Ships arriving to the new planet will be populated with shapeless, pulsating biomasses sitting inside metal exoskeletons. Here's how it happens. Bones in space get weaker, so do muscles. There's no gravity, so your body's not under any sort of pressure to keep it running properly. Astronauts on the International Space Station do a lot of exercise to stop their muscles from withering away. Back to the story. There are gyms and special machines that recreate gravity on every space transport. But to save energy, they're only plugged in a couple of hours per day. Unfortunately, no matter how hard people exercise, in space it just won't be enough. After the first 100 years, human bones have become so brittle that anything remotely physical can lead to injury. After another 100 years, people lose the ability to stand up on their two legs. But it's not only because of weak bones. After all those years in zero gravity, the human body's already changed a lot. A big problem is that people lose their sense of balance. If you try to stand up, you'll just fall. The ship's captains dismantled the gravity machines. They weren't working anyways. And all the sports equipment on board got taken apart ages ago and used as spare parts for the ships. The lack of gravity didn't just make people weaker, it also made them taller. The spine needs gravity to keep it stable, and now all those backbone discs have stretched themselves out. Humans are starting to look like blow-up toys. Everyone's given mechanical arms and legs. You just strap them on and get to work. Servicing the engine, cleaning out the bedrooms, throwing trash out into space, lifting anything. Not happening without those mechanical arms and legs. Time passes, and people become more helpless. Luckily, the mechanical bodysuits keep getting better and better. Since the sun collapsed in on itself, human eyes have been having a hard time. Inside the ships, the sun is replaced by special artificial light that also gives off vitamin D. Since there's way less light overall, people's pupils become wider. Then, after a few more centuries, their vision really starts going downhill. But this problem is solved by technology. Artificial lenses magnify light and keep humans from going completely blind. The ships get disinfected every single day. That stops bacteria and microbes from multiplying. But it also means that the human immune system doesn't have to fight off any diseases. Pretty soon, humans can't defend themselves against anything. Even a mild cold could be seriously harmful. It's fine for now. There are no germs or anything on board. But what's going to happen later on down the road? On the ship, millions of plants grow in special greenhouses with water and ultraviolet light. The plants produce oxygen and spread it through the entire ship. Of course, it's not enough oxygen to satisfy millions, but it helps people remember the planet they left behind. After centuries of living on spaceships, humans have adapted to the new conditions and almost stopped breathing. Lungs have disappeared almost completely, and humans are starting to develop other ways of getting oxygen. From water, from liquid oxygen tanks, we're becoming a totally new species. But it's not all bad. Genetic engineering is developing every year. Full-fledged life support suits are created. They help with movement, strength, speed, vision, hearing, even speech. People's voices get so weak they can only speak in whispers. Luckily, the suits have built-in microphones and speakers. There's no food anymore, just specially created liquids. After all that time in space, the human stomach can't digest anything anyway. Fancy a handful of peanuts or a small cracker? Forget it! In the beginning, the special space food had loads of flavor, but over time, people sort of forgot what things were supposed to taste like. Eventually, they stopped adding in flavorings, and because of this new tasteless food, tongue receptors stopped working. Soon, people lost all sense of taste. For some people, this life seems unbearable, but they have a choice. They can just slide on into a cryogenic capsule for millions of years. Then it's just a matter of a quick defrost when the ships finally arrive. But it's seriously risky to be frozen for such a long time. There's no guarantee that the ships won't crash into a huge meteorite, or worse. People start to take a different approach. They upload their consciousness to a central computer. It's safer and requires much less power. And when you wake up, you can just download your mind into a new modified human suit. Some people decide to stay awake and live a, quote, normal life. Thousands of years pass, then millions. Humans look really different now. All their limbs are now artificial, and the exoskeletons they wear are controlled by mind power. With each passing millennium, arms, neck, legs, and spines, they become smaller and smaller. Brittle bones soon dissolve into nothingness. Eyes, nose, and mouths disappear. The brain isn't protected by a skull anymore, it's just surrounded by soft skin. Only consciousness remains. Nowadays, a human is a powerful high-tech robot ruled over by a small pulsating bag filled with a brain. It's been a few million years since humans left Earth. All the ship's inhabitants have already forgotten that their species was born on a planet with gravity. The history of life on Earth has become a myth, an ancient legend. Most people believe that these ships are their true homes, always have been. That's why, when humans finally reach their destination, no one's that eager to get off and have a walk around. Life on a new, unknown planet seems like a huge pain in the spacesuit. Gravity, air, bacteria, germs – it takes several thousand years of evolution for humanity to get used to these new conditions. Luckily, humans have a secret weapon – technology. At this point, all humans are downloaded from the central computer into new robot suits. People face a choice: get off the ship and make this planet their new home, or stay and live on the ships. Those that stay on the ships set off into the expanses of space to explore the galaxy and discover new worlds. Those who decide to stay on the new planet have to adapt to the new conditions. It's pretty different from Earth. There's a different air density, different weather patterns, and strange new chemical elements. It will take another million years before these robo-brain sacs take on a new shape. One day, these distant human descendants will want to research their origins. They'll invent a ship that can jump through space and time. The research will lead them to the distant past, to the small planet Earth, to now. This might sound crazy, but just imagine that tomorrow someone lands in your backyard and they're your descendants from the future. Those passengers who stayed on the ships will probably find new planets and maybe decide to stay on some of them. Their bodies will change and adapt too. So, in billions of years, the universe will be inhabited by different amazing creatures that all have something in common. They were all humans once.
Humans could live in a vacuum, with the only difference being, well, our entire selves. We're always talking about living on other planets and how we can adapt to them, but theoretically, we could live on a space station. However, in that case, life would evolve completely differently, all because we'd have to live without an atmosphere. What do we humans need to adapt to living in a vacuum? Dougal-Dixon created this cool concept in his book, creatures known as vacuumorphs, designed to survive in space. They're kinda like humans, but not really. First, in space with no air at all, it's all about pressure. There's a thing called atmospheric pressure. In simple words, how much does the atmosphere press on our shoulders? How heavy it weighs. Humans are used to living at sea level where there's a lot of pressure from the air around us. But in space, there's none. This would be tough for our bodies. Astronauts have their suits to handle such dramatic change, which means most likely we'd have to get a hard shell guarding our insides, like robots, beetles, or certain marine animals that can handle different levels of depth. Having a shell of some kind also helps to control the movement of atoms both coming in and leaving the body. These unique beings from Dixon's book, Homo caelestes, have crustacean-like features. You can see that they have this shield we discussed. They're built to withstand the challenges of orbit and the vacuum. They breathe with 3 lungs, have stubby limbs for grabbing onto spaceships, and sealed eyes to shield them from harsh conditions. These little guys also need unique organs to handle oxygen and waste. Unfortunately, they can't reproduce. Despite their incredible adaptability, vacuum morphs are sterile and have a limited lifespan. We know from movies that outer space is extremely scary. It's freezing cold, dangerous radiation, and no air at all. If you're out there, your blood boils or you simply freeze instantly. But despite all that, humans could survive in outer space for a while. Imagine you're suddenly thrown out of your spaceship. In movies, that would mean instant departure from the life station. But in real life, it's not as instant as Hollywood makes it seem. Scientists have done questionable experiments and had accidents with humans. There was an astronaut who had his spacesuit accidentally depressurized. He blacked out, but was luckily okay after repressurization, although he did lose his sense of taste for a while. In any case, it turns out you could actually survive for a couple of minutes in the vacuum of space, but it's not a pleasant experience. When you're in space without a suit, the lack of pressure makes air in your lungs expand, which is really bad if you're holding your breath. Within a minute, you'll pass out from lack of oxygen. It takes just a few seconds for everything to go dark. However, there is a form of life that can hang out in outer space just fine. Scientists found some tiny creatures called extremophiles that can handle all of that. They're nature's most brave survivors. These microbes can handle crazy conditions like freezing cold, no air, and lots of radiation. Recently, we decided to find out how this special bacterium copes in space. Scientists sent it up to the International Space Station and left it outside for a whole year. When they checked on it later, they found something amazing. The bacterium hadn't changed much in appearance, and it even had produced tiny structures called outer membrane vesicles to protect itself. It turns out that this bacterium has a superpower. It can repair its DNA and fight off harmful molecules that could damage it. It also changes the way it uses energy to adapt to space life. This could help us learn more about how life can exist beyond our planet. It was called the Transpopo mission. Bacteria are incredibly adaptive. For example, we discovered that bacteria can float around in space for years. These tiny organisms can stick together in clumps, like little protective communities. They can survive the harsh conditions of outer space by doing so. In a cool experiment, scientists put some really tough bacteria on the outside of the International Space Station. These bacteria were in little balls, each 5 sheets of paper thick. As a result, they stayed out there, unharmed, for 3 whole years. Their outer layers acted like shields, protecting the ones inside from all the space nasties. This discovery suggests that groups of bacteria could travel through space between planets. They call this idea panspermia, which basically means spreading life through the universe. In other words, space travel might accidentally bring life to other planets. So if we found microbial life on Mars, for example, that could even signify that it had arrived there from somewhere. All this means that some microbes could survive in outer space. With more complex creatures like animals, however, things get harder. The most important thing for sustaining life is energy. Everything else is a nice addition, but without energy, we wouldn't get anywhere. Life also needs a lot of chemicals mixed in a liquid for a long time and in a big space station to function. If there's not enough pressure, the liquid evaporates. Vacuum means there's hardly any pressure at all. Life evolving inside an asteroid or moon that lacks atmosphere might be possible. Life adapting to space is possible. Hypothetically, these space-living beings could be made of gas, sentient clouds floating around. They could also be made of pure energy, invisible but able to communicate through their energy levels. Or some giants with their own atmosphere, like Earth, with smaller creatures living on them. But all this is extremely unlikely, so the chances that life will evolve in outer space by itself are super low. Now, imagine if, instead of space, we were talking about a planet covered in a tough, non-breathable layer around it. Surprisingly, even if there's no air on the planet, there are still some chances that life could evolve, at least if there are some signs of water. Deep below the surface, there could be rivers warmed by special vents spewing out minerals. Life could start there, away from the surface where it's safe from drying up. Breathing is just one way we get energy, but there are other options. For example, sunlight. Think about the moon's surface. There's no air there, but we could still use solar power to survive. However, we're deep underground. With limited access to sunlight, these creatures would have to evolve ingenious ways to harness alternative energy sources. Some of them could possess photosynthetic capabilities, using specialized pigments to harness even the faintest traces of light filtering through the planet's crust. Others could form symbiotic relationships with certain bacteria that could help them receive energy from minerals and organic compounds in the rivers. Deep below the planet's surface, the rivers aren't just sources of water. They're rich in nutrients vital for a sustaining life. These rivers flow through vast underground networks, creating pockets of habitable environments where life thrives. These creatures could eat solid minerals and develop shells to keep their insides moist. They'd have to evolve unique biological features to survive in their harsh surroundings. For example, some species might develop bioluminescence to navigate the dark underground tunnels. Others could adapt sensory organs capable of detecting subtle changes in the environment, helping them locate sources of nutrients and avoid danger, kind of like moles. These ecosystems would operate on a delicate balance of nutrient cycling. Microorganisms would break down organic matter and release essential nutrients into the rivers. This, in turn, could help plants evolve, and plants could become food for larger creatures, and so on. And then, who knows what could happen over millennia? As the planet's crust shifts and cracks over time, exposing these underground realms to new challenges, the creatures adapt and evolve in response. In any case, what we learned is that life is much more adapting than we previously thought. It could survive even in extremely harsh conditions. We might not know what types of life we'll discover on other planets, but we shouldn't be surprised if we find it in weird, unexpected places.
You rub your eyes in disbelief. Your friend has turned himself into an actual anime character. You yank his hair and feel his skin to see if this is some kind of a prank. The picture he sent you wasn't a filter at all. Your mom knocks on your door telling you breakfast is ready. You panic and quickly hide your friend in the closet just as your mom enters the room. She looks around confused about the mess you did in your room. She tells you to tidy up and come out to breakfast before it gets cold. You whisper to your friend to wait in your room while you eat. It'll only take 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
You're gobbling up your food while your mom and dad are looking at you with their jaws dropped. In less than 30 seconds, you finish up your meal, thank your parents, rush back to your room, and lock the door behind you. Your friend is lying down on your bed, scrolling through his phone without a care in the world. You, on the other hand, can't believe it's happening and go online to see if anyone else is turning into an anime character. You come across a thread that catches your eye about someone going through the same thing. And the person mentions that they're going to an anime convention that's happening in your town, but you'll have to take the bus to get there. You and your friend sneak out the window and go down the emergency staircase outside and make it to the streets. You grab the first bus and find seats in the back. You check your phone and find out that your morning class was canceled. However, you get an email that your quiz today is pushed an hour earlier instead. You realize you may not make it back in time.
Oh no!
Everyone on the bus is staring at you. They're starstruck by how realistic your friend looks and are even taking pictures of him. You hand him your hoodie and tell him to cover up to not draw any more attention to yourselves. The journey will take around an hour to get there. An hour passes and you finally arrive at the venue. It's jam-packed with anime fans dressed up in their favorite costumes, including Pokémon, Attack on Titan, Dragon Ball Z, and everything else. Before you wait in line, you realize that you should buy some merch and dress for the role. Your friend helps you out and is still wearing the hoodie to disguise himself. Even though everyone is wearing costumes, your friend stands out.
Oh yeah.
The hoodie accidentally slips, and some people catch a glimpse of him and screech in excitement. Many anime-dressed fans rush to him and flock to him with selfies and ask, how did he create his costume? The one thing they can't put their finger on is what character he is. Seeing as you're at an anime convention, you don't have to worry about him wearing cover-up, but you still don't want to be the center of attention. You wait in line and finally get your tickets and enter. You open the thread and try to contact the person who's going through the same thing. The person replies and says to seek out the guardian princess on the first level. You're even more confused than before trying to find her. There's music blasting in the background and mini competitions popping up out of nowhere. Suddenly, your friend gets dragged into a prize poll for the best costume. They pull him on stage and eyes and cameras are on him. Your friend looks at you confused, but you look back at him equally dumbstruck. He poses there and fits in his role perfectly. Suddenly, his eyes flash red and some lightning rings form around his fist. His hair stands up slightly. Your eyes widen in shock, knowing that this is not part of the show, but everyone else thinks otherwise. You rush on stage and pull him off. He snaps back to normal and everyone boos. Just as you're escorting him down, they announce that he won first prize. But it's too late. The two of you vanish. Your friend is scared and didn't know what happened back there. You can sense that coming here may have been a mistake. You check your watch and you still have time to make it back to the city and head to class. You catch some glimpses of a woman wearing white following your every move. You've been seeing this person around since you were on the bus. You take your friend to have some refreshments before catching the next bus. You're on your phone trying to figure something out. Your friend, meanwhile, is freshened up and also helps you with your research. But then, your friend collapses to his knees, clenching his fists together. You go to him and try to help him up, but you can see his pupils turning red. There's electricity emitting from his fists. The ground starts to shake. You take a few steps back. You're scared and don't know what to do. Some people gather around and start taking pictures and sharing them on social media. But your friend is getting worse. Suddenly, everything around him starts to float, including the people taking selfies, even the pictures on the wall, and the kiosk selling a bunch of merch. People still think this is part of the convention. You rush over to him and try to control him, but you too are floating in the air. You turn around and see what looks like the guardian princess with sky blue hair and a white dress. Her eyes are also red, and she starts floating. She and your friend lock eyes and are chasing after each other at lightning speed. The convention is getting destroyed, and people are panicking. You try to find a place to hide, but their speed is breaking every kiosk and every platform. You rush out with the rest of the people and hide safely. You take off your costume and help people who are in need. But suddenly, they're also changing. They start turning into the anime characters they were dressed as. So, you see a huge section of Pokémon, Attack on Titan, and Dragon Ball Z characters come to life. Some of them are turning into life-sized versions of the characters. You can't find your friend, and all the anime characters are panicking even more. The news gets a hold of this and is covering everything. You can't believe what's happening in front of you. You run away to the parking lot, but anime characters are running rampant. The city town is now filled with real anime characters. You still can't find your friend. The venue is almost completely destroyed. Some titans are roaming around, crushing everything underneath them. Pokemon are battling each other, and the rest are going about their business. 1 year later. You wake up at home, ready for your next semester in university. The world is almost 50% anime characters, but they learn to get along just fine. You have breakfast at home, and the news anchor is an anime character. You haven't seen your friend since the anime convention. No one knows where he or the guardian princess went. Even though almost half the world is anime characters, they're mainly peaceful with everyone else. Scientists can't explain what happened and if it can be reversed. And they also can't explain why random people are turning into them. You head downstairs and wait for your bus, but it's late. You head to the subway despite the rush hour. There are anime characters all around. Some of them are so tiny that they have their own little section for them. The giant anime creatures moved out of the city and found a place to live in the countryside where they can't do any damage. After a long day at class, you finally go home and crash. You see a shadowy figure standing behind your door and slowly walking towards you. He reveals himself to be your friend. His hair is white and he looks sinister. He tells you that he knows how to stop this once and for all.
Ever wondered how people all around the world spend their precious 24 hours each day? Well, you're about to find out. Time is like a common thread that connects us all. No matter where we're from, we all have the same 24 hours to work with. But people from different countries and cultures spend it very differently. But imagine if the entire world were one person. What would their day look like? That's the question that Canadian researchers aim to answer. They wanted to know what the average human's day looks like all around the world. They collected surveys from over 130 countries, looking at surveys conducted from 2000 to 2019. Anyway, researchers combed through surveys about people's daily routines and even gathered information about jobs and economic activities. So, what are your theories? Do you think it's going to be a boring work, sleep, repeat cycle? Surprisingly, not at all. In reality, it turns out that we spend more than a third of our time on things that make us feel good and keep us healthy. Researchers simplified time into 4 categories to make it super easy to understand. First up, we have sleep and bed rest. There's nothing particularly surprising here. An average adult sleeps about 9 hours a day. We know that this is a norm for healthy sleep, but if you think about it, it turns out that sleep takes up a huge chunk of our day. It's a bit sad that we need it so much. Just imagine how many things we could have gotten done if we didn't. Next, we have direct human outcomes. This category covers things that directly affect us as individuals. It includes activities like eating, hanging out with friends, taking care of ourselves, and having fun. You know, all the stuff that makes us feel good. And not only that, these activities include everything from working, education, and personal growth to socializing and watching TV. The researchers discovered that we dedicate just over 9 hours each day to these things. In this magical 9.4 hours of our day, we do so many cool things. We take care of ourselves and others through hygiene and grooming. We also spend time on healthcare, including looking after our own well-being and taking care of our loved ones. Work, schooling, academic and private sector research, exercising, socializing, meals, hobbies, and even engaging with the media are all part of this awesome mix. Now, let's break it down even further. About half of this time, which is about 4.6 hours, is spent on passive, interactive, and social activities. Think of catching up with friends or reading a fantastic book. Wahoo for fun times! Eating delicious meals takes up around 1.6 hours. It's essential to fuel our bodies and enjoy the wonders of food. School and research add another 1.1 hours to the mix because learning never stops. And here's an interesting twist. Certain activities seem to be universal, regardless of a country's wealth. Hygiene and grooming, as well as meal times, remain consistent across low-income and high-income countries. Well, it makes sense if you think about it. Our basic necessities bring us all together, no matter where we're from, but it's still pretty cool. Of course, keep in mind that there are variations between individuals and cultures. Everyone has their unique way of spending time. But when we zoom out and look at the big picture globally, these activities stay pretty consistent. Next on the list, we have organizational outcomes. This is all about being productive and getting things done. It includes tasks like working, studying, organizing, and managing our lives. Basically, it's all the stuff we do to keep our lives running smoothly. Now let's break it down. Organizational outcomes include everyday activities like grocery shopping, getting from one place to another, paying bills, accessing government services, and handling all kinds of administrative stuff, as well as travel and administration. It's the nitty-gritty of managing our lives and taking care of practical matters. In our average human day, we spend just over 2 hours on these important tasks. Now, here's an interesting twist. Despite the diversity of countries and cultures around the world, commuting times seem to be remarkably similar. We might have expected significant variations, but the research team discovered that commuting times are remarkably universal. So, on average, we spend about 1 hour each day moving from one place to another. This finding has caught their attention. Further research is already underway to dig deeper into this fascinating aspect of our lives. The mysteries of travel and its impact on our daily routines are being unraveled as we speak. And it seems like, even though these activities may seem mundane, they play a crucial role in keeping our lives running smoothly. And lastly, we have external outcomes. This category is about things we do that affect the world around us. It includes activities like commuting, participating in the economy, and being part of the bigger picture. In other words, these are the activities that aim to create changes in the world outside of ourselves. Now, here are some examples: agriculture and fishing, preparing and serving food, mining, working with lumber, tapping into fossil fuels and renewable energy, constructing and maintaining buildings and infrastructure, keeping our living spaces clean, tending to our pets and gardens, and managing waste. It's a whole bunch of stuff that affects the world around us. So, how much time do you think you devote to this every day? Well, research shows that in our daily lives, we spend a whopping 3.4 hours on these tasks. Here's where things get interesting. These activities reveal some salient differences between low-income and high-income countries. In the lowest-income countries, people spend an average of over 1.5 hours each day growing and collecting their own food. It's a massive amount of human labor required to meet their food needs. But as countries become wealthier and more advanced, things change. In the highest-income countries, farming is accomplished in less than 5 minutes per day on average. Can you believe it? The wonders of technology and mechanization free up over an hour of time. So let's appreciate the challenging work that goes into providing food, raw materials, construction, and other similar tasks. This data also shows us that as we progress and become more industrialized, we gain precious hours in our day. We have more time to explore, create, and enjoy the world around us. Time becomes our ally, allowing us to pursue other passions and adventures. So, here's what an average human's day looks like. They spend 9 hours sleeping, around 9.5 hours on things that are important and fun to them, around 2 hours organizing stuff, and around 3.5 hours affecting the bigger world around them. Pretty cool, isn't it? How does it compare to your daily routine? By the way, when researchers began their study, they started with Australia and New Zealand and got some surprising results. For example, Australians love to socialize. On average, they spend about 5 hours each day engaging with people and enjoying various activities. That's slightly above the global average. They have a knack for going out, exploring museums, watching sports, and simply hanging out with their friends. It's all part of our social fabric. Interestingly, this trend of social activities aligning with GDP holds true not only for Australia, but globally as well. The study's lead author highlights that the activities we humans engage in and the time we spend on these activities shape our societies and personal well-being. It's remarkable how the universal notion of time allows us to compare ourselves with people around the world and across different time periods. From sleep to socializing, we've learned some interesting insights about the average human day worldwide and how it compares to life in Australia. Remember, time is precious, so choose how you spend it wisely. Whether you're catching some Z's or enjoying quality time with friends, make the most of each moment. Stay curious, keep exploring, and embrace the wonderful tapestry of activities that make up our daily lives.
You're living the dream, vacationing across the Americas. One fine day, you stop by a food vendor and order a delicious empanada. It's so crunchy and yummy, and oh no, what is that? As you can only identify half of a cockroach's body. This means that the other half is now swimming its way down your digestive system. Now what? Does this mean you'll turn into a similar insect-like creature in that famous Kafka book? Nah, unfortunately, you won't live through any metamorphosis. Let's see what happens to that poor little insect. First of all, if you haven't missed school, you know that digestion starts at the mouth. Saliva contains a lot of special enzymes that help digest the starches in your food. In other words, saliva is acidic and starts to break that roach down. So probably if it was alive, it began to pass away right then and there. This means that by the time it makes it to your stomach, it's most likely gone for good. Contrary to your biggest fear, it will not start walking around in your tummy. You see, your experience with this insect has been terrible so far. You've seen this little dude eating the pages of your favorite books. You've seen it squeeze its way in tiny holes when you tried going after it. And you've seen it coming in and out of sewers like it's their playground. So it's normal for you to think, oh no, will I get sick? Hopefully not. I like to think that since you swallowed such a small piece of it, your immune system will probably take care of it without any big damage to your body. But there is a chance that you'll get similar symptoms to when you have the flu. Apparently, cockroaches contain a specific type of protein in their bodies that can give people allergies. It could affect your respiratory system, so you'd find yourself having stuff like a runny nose, an itchy throat, some random rashes, and so on. Since you're a natural truth seeker, while that cockroach is being digested in your intestines, you decide to become the world's next cockroach expert. Surprisingly, this does take the edge off. Fun fact about roaches, they can hold their breath underwater for up to 30 minutes. This means that if they weren't affected by the acid in your stomach, they could probably survive quite some time in there. That's also how they circle around so comfortably inside sewers. But that's disgusting, so we should change the imagery. Even though they are kind of icky insects. A lot of cultures in the world do eat cockroaches. They are considered highly proteic, like many insects. These roaches that you can find in big food markets weren't taken off the streets, though. They were born and raised in cockroach farms. I mean, can you imagine that? They're popular because they're cheap, and they can be raised in pretty large quantities at once. On a brighter note, did you know that if you actually did swallow a cockroach, it would be like swallowing a dinosaur? I mean, they're not technically dinosaurs, but roaches were the first and only creatures to be discovered living in caves, before the dinosaurs were wiped out some 60 million years ago. So next time someone asks you what your favorite meal is, maybe you can say, that prehistoric empanada I had once when I was traveling the world. After a few hours, you're looking at your experience from a different point of view. Who knew you wouldn't be traumatized by swallowing a live cockroach, but rather, you'd want to get more intimate with them as a species. Walking down the street, you see some roaches circling around and even decide to name them. That one is Anchor, for example, and it's a baby cockroach. You recently discovered that a one-day-old cockroach can already run as fast as its parents. And gasp, but there are over 4,000 different species of cockroaches worldwide. Who would have known? You post all about your emotional journey with roaches on social media, and a lot of people seem to have an opinion on what might happen to you. They were all wrong, though. It's been over 8 hours already, and that half of a cockroach you ate has probably already been absorbed by your body. That's when your phone rings, and Peter, a close friend of yours, is panicking on the other end of the line. Man, I was taking a nap with my mouth open and I think I just swallowed a whole spider. And no, unfortunately, the outcome of this story is not him becoming the next Spider-Man. You see, there's a popular myth that someone started spreading around many years ago that humans usually swallow up to a pound of spiders while sleeping during one lifetime. But that's not true. It's very difficult for a human to swallow a spider unintentionally. The main reason for this has to do with spiders themselves. Humans are huge creatures, and often spiders will see us as a part of the landscape, just like a couch, stairs, or a piece of furniture. Secondly, if they did get close enough to us, the bizarre sounds we make while sleeping would scare them away. Our snoring and even our breathing vibrate intensely, and this is enough to keep a spider away from us. Only a small number of spider species actually share the space of our homes with us, unless you live in Australia, of course. And they usually live in quiet corners, not bothering us humans much. Plus, we hardly ever swallow while we're sleeping. The average human spends a long time of their sleeping period without swallowing. It means that the time gap between one swallow and another, the itsy-bitsy spider would have been far gone from Peter's mouth. I think he just wanted a story as hype as yours to share online. Here's a plot twist, though. What if what happened to you were to happen the other way around? I mean, what if you were swallowed by a live cockroach instead? Now I know what you're thinking. This would only be possible in the plot of a Harry Potter or some cheesy sci-fi movie, but bear with me. You find yourself shrinking in size until your field of vision is dominated by this humongous animal. From where you're standing, you can see its furry legs and oh my, those look like some weird replacement for teeth. In its eyes, you're probably just another insect that belongs to its wide range of culinary options. Unfortunately for you, roaches will eat almost anything they come across. It's getting closer and closer. Every time it moves its legs, the floor beneath you trembles. You try to run, but it outruns you, and yikes, you've just got swallowed by this beast. A quick check of your surroundings. It's dark and damp and quite smelly. Over to your right, you have what looks like a piece of fruitcake. To your right, a bygone insect. You start to feel a little out of the fresh air, but manage to get a bit of oxygen when the roach opens its mouth to eat yet another piece of something. Its digestive tract looks pretty big, and by its size, you try to figure out how big your cockroach buddy must be. You know that one of the biggest cockroaches alive measures around 6 inches. I mean, that's the size of an American $1 bill. It's so big that you could probably build a racetrack and do some exercise while you wait to be digested. What's that waterfall forming on the horizon? Ew, how gross. I think it's the roach's intestinal juice that's about to fall down upon you. In a few minutes, them enzymes will break you down like a 5-star meal. A few hours ago, you were living your dream vacation, and now you're on the inside of the very creature you've been trying to avoid your entire life.
Oh, capybaras. I bet your social media is flooded with these adorable creatures enjoying a hot bath, looking like they couldn't care less about the world's problems. Yeah, I get it. The world's largest rodents don't exactly look too sharp with that zen vibe going on, but they're actually pretty clever. Studies reveal they're even smarter than 2-year-old kids and average dogs. The thing is, while dogs can be trained, capybaras are independent thinkers with their own unique way of doing things. So, if you ask them to do a rollover, they'll probably think, oh, not again, and come up with their own quirky way to pull it off. Or they just might decide not to do it at all. Another thing that adds to their intelligence is their complex communication. Capybaras whistle when they sense danger, purr when they're happy, chirp when they're in a group, and even do teeth chattering when excited about food. The list goes on. Just imagine what they'd do if they suddenly gained human-level intelligence overnight. With their unique vocal abilities, capybaras could make fantastic voice actors, creating sounds beyond human capability and adding realism to animals and movies. Ultimately, getting back to the fact that the capybara in Disney's Encanto doesn't have a voice. Capybaras could even host swimming championships. like they're the Michael Phelps of the animal kingdom. Alright, maybe I got carried away a bit, but they do move with way more grace underwater than they do on land. Oh, and remember when we chatted about capybaras and hot baths? It's not just for showing off on social media. They genuinely love it because it helps with treating skin conditions and retaining heat afterwards. So, with a bit more intelligence, they'd probably take control of hot springs and jacuzzis, kicking the humans out. Picture signs that read "Capybaras Only," handwritten by capybaras themselves. You know when you're feeling down and out of the blue your cat saunters over, purring and rubbing against you to lift your spirits? It's not like these kitties have a crystal ball for predicting gloomy days, but cats do have this uncanny power to sense their owner's mood. That's because picking up on others' emotions is crucial for animals that live in social groups. Well, cats do pick up on their owner's usual behaviors, so they can tell when something is off and their human is acting differently. Now imagine this sixth sense paired with human-level intelligence. Cats would open their own Whisker Wellness Center, providing theropods with perfection. If you're lost for words during the therapy session, no worries. They can just purr in your lap for an hour, but they'll still charge you for that. Cat therapists wouldn't even need little notepads to write down patients' complaints because they have an excellent memory. Just like humans, cats find it easier to remember significant or extreme experiences, such as the time they got stuck in a closet or when you bought them the first lick and lap treat. With impressive procedural and spatial memory, cats can recall and retain these memories for 10 years or more. Whether they're happily crashing down a hill or engaged in a bamboo mukbang, there's something about pandas that we just can't look away from. YouTube is brimming with thousands of videos featuring these oddly enchanting creatures rolling around, backward, and even sideways. Theories suggest that they roll for a bunch of reasons, like regulating body temperature or waking up muscles that have fallen asleep after sitting for long periods. But, well, there's another crucial factor – laziness. I mean, why walk when you can use gravity and roll down hills, right? If pandas were as smart as humans, they could pioneer the world's first school for perfect jobs for the lazy, such as working on motocross circuits, rolling all the way down to check if the ramp's slope is just right. They would also be the champs at detecting when people lie, so they could do a pretty good job as lawyers, HR professionals, or negotiators. I know. We often think of them as black and white, clumsy creatures, and not exactly protagonists from Lie to Me. But after years of living among humans, they've learned how to distinguish between angry and happy human expressions. So, with a human-level brain, they could easily become experts in reading micro-expressions. What would you say if I asked you which sea creature is the smartest? I bet dolphin was the first thing that came to your mind. Yeah, they're pretty clever. For example, dolphins have this cool move where they use sponges to protect their noses while fishing, and they learned how to do that 200 years ago. But do you know who figured out how to use tools way before dolphins? Yep, sea otters. I know we often get distracted by how stinking cute they look floating on their backs, and it's easy to forget those tiny hands and brains can do some insane stuff. Thanks to their forepaws, equipped with retractable claws and tough pads for gripping, sea otters can rub, twist, pull, or tear things with surprising skill. So don't be surprised when you see them doing crazy stuff like hiding their favorite toys in their bellies or helping people clean pools. These behaviors are really fun to watch, but they've also learned some impressive tricks in the wild, like using rocks as hammers to crack open shellfish. In a world where these water pups are as smart as humans, they'd probably own 5-star seafood restaurants around the world. I mean, they've got mad skills handling the tough shells of creatures like sea urchins, clams, and crabs. Plus, their impeccably good taste in food would only get better now that they can finally enroll in Le Cordon Bleu. Now, just because an elephant's brain is 3 times bigger than the human average, that doesn't mean elephants are 3 times smarter than us. Sure, they have 3 times more neurons, but only a small part of them is in the cortex, the part responsible for complex skills like problem-solving and learning. However, elephants are remarkably developed emotionally. While empathy is often considered a hallmark of human intelligence, Elephants also put themselves in each other's shoes, feet. These sensitive beings can discern when their elephant buddies are in pain or feeling down, and they offer comfort when needed. With a more refined intelligence, they might delve into the world of art, expressing their complex emotions on huge canvases and using their trunks to create Jackson Pollock-inspired masterpieces. From a huge brain to a tiny one, the size of your pinky nail. Yep, we're talking about the hamster brain. These cute little buddies are among the cleanest animals in the world. And I'm not just talking about self-cleaning. They actually like to keep their surroundings clean, not only in captivity, but also in the wild. For example, hamsters dig deep burrows with nesting places, and they separate different sections for their waste and food. If hamsters were as smart as humans, they'd turn this cleaning OCD into a business. Hey, meet the Spark Joy rodent, the world's first hamster to publish a book, adapting Marie Kondo's techniques to keep its cage squeaky clean and organized. Hey, Rocky, come here, boy! Did you really expect the list to end without mentioning dogs? Let me guess. You probably think your best buddy is the smartest thing on four legs and beam with pride that Rocky actually knows its own name, right? Well, Rocky might be much smarter than you think. In fact, dogs can understand around 165 words. In our make-believe world, I'm pretty sure dogs would be the first animals to come up with their own complex language, opening woof language schools around the country. I can picture dogs sitting down for TV interviews, declaring they're done being called man's best friend and would prefer to be recognized as joy coaches. Yeah, they're excellent at dealing with others and can even intentionally try to trick other dogs and humans to score some tasty rewards. Good for them, I guess.
Have you ever wondered why all planets are perfectly round? And what if these celestial bodies decided to break the rules and change their shape? Would we end up with square planets, triangular moons, or maybe even intergalactic shapes we can't even imagine? Well, let's find out. So how do planets form in the first place? The universe is filled with swirling clouds of dust and gas. These clouds, called molecular clouds, consist of various elements and compounds, such as hydrogen, helium, carbon, oxygen, and so on. They're like a cosmic kitchen filled with the ingredients needed to cook up some brand new planets. The first step in the recipe for planetary formation is called the accretion theory. Let's say that something happens that causes gravitational instability, like a supernova goes off nearby or something. This pushes the gas and dust in the cloud and causes them to come together. Because of gravity, these particles start falling toward a central point. They become more tightly packed together, like when you squeeze a ball in your hand. And eventually, they're squeezed so hard that the cloud starts to flatten into a disc shape. Kind of like when you mix flour and water to make pizza dough. This disk is called a protoplanetary disk. It's also spinning because the cloud's particles had some rotation to begin with. Now, imagine these tiny dust particles and gas molecules dancing around in the disk. Sometimes they bump into each other, and when they do, they stick together like Velcro. These little clumps of dust and gas are called planetesimals. They're the building blocks of planets. And as the planetesimals continued to collide and merge, they grew larger and larger, forming protoplanets. The protoplanets were getting serious about their size, and their gravity became stronger. Some of them got so massive that they became the grand masters of their cosmic neighborhoods, the planets we know and love. Each planet had its own unique recipe of gases, rocks, and sometimes even water. But why do the planets look like spheres? Well, it's all because of gravity. Let's go back to our protoplanets. Imagine you're squeezing a balloon with your hands. The air inside of the balloon pushes back, creating pressure. Something similar happens with planets. Gravity squeezes its material inward, pulling in towards the center. And since gravity acts equally in all directions, it pulls material from all sides toward the center of mass, resulting in a sphere-like shape. And that material pushes back with pressure, resisting the force of gravity. In the end, they both find a sweet spot where they balance each other out. It's called hydrostatic equilibrium, a fancy term that means everything inside a planet is in balance. But that's not all. Another thing that makes the planet spherical is their rotation. Think about a ball of Play-Doh or something like that. Imagine you spin it rapidly. The material starts to push outward, making the Play-Doh bulge at the equator and flatten at the poles. The same thing happens to planets. As they spin on their axes, the combination of gravity and rotation pushes the material outward, making the planet bulge at the equator. They low-key want to become disks again. However, gravity doesn't want any lumpy planets. It wants them to be nice and round, so it keeps pulling on the material, trying to make everything as compact as possible. Eventually, gravity wins, and the planet settles into a spherical shape. Let's take some examples from our planetary playlist. Jupiter, the giant of the solar system, loves to show off its oblateness. It spins so fast that it becomes noticeably squished at the poles and chubby in the middle. It's like a spinning top with a cute belly. Saturn, the ringed wonder, also joins the oblate party. It spins around with its beautiful rings, and its oblateness is even more pronounced than Jupiter's. These examples show how rotation can give planets a unique shape. They go from being perfectly round to having a delightful bulge around the middle. It's like cosmic pottery, where the spinning motion creates a playful and distinct shape. So now you know why the planets are round. But what's more interesting is, what if they weren't? What if they were, let's say, cubical, or even triangular? Well, let's see. A cube-shaped or a triangle-shaped planet would have its mass spread out in a completely different way than a sphere. And you know what that means? Gravity would be all shook up too. On a spherical planet, gravity pulls everything towards the center because the mass is evenly distributed around that center. But when we introduce a cube-shaped or triangle-shaped planet, things get interesting. If you're standing at the center of one of those faces, you'd feel the strongest pull of gravity. That's because the faces are the closest to the center of gravity. And as you venture away from the center and start walking towards the edges, gravity starts playing tricks on you. You would feel the struggle against the steep-angled gravity. Walking on those edges would feel just like climbing a mountain, or walking on a super steep slope. All because gravity wants you right in the middle of the face, and nowhere else. Now imagine the terrain along the edges and corners. It's a barren, rocky, and dry landscape. Why? Well, all the water would pool in at the center of each face, leaving the edges high and dry. And the air quality? Well, it's either non-existent or so thin that it can't support life. Not the coziest place to set up camp, that's for sure. And don't forget your warm clothes, lunch, and hiking boots. You'll need them because of the crazy climate. The type of climate you'll encounter on our cube or triangle-shaped Earth depends on how it spins. If it rotates at its corners, each side would enjoy a mild, temperate climate. However, if it rotates on an axis through two of its faces, things get intense. Picture a roller coaster version of our current climate. Some faces would be polar wonderlands, icy and chilly. The top and bottom faces for the cube, and the bottom face for the triangle. Meanwhile, the other sides would be completely different. In a cube, they would be scorching hot with an equatorial climate that would make you break a sweat. Instead of sunlight gently curving along the surface, it would directly beam onto these faces. Talk about feeling the heat. And on a triangular planet, the sunlight would strike the faces at an angle. This angled sunlight would create fascinating temperature variations across the planet. Imagine this. As you move from the base of the triangle towards the tip, the temperatures would gradually decrease. The base, where the sunlight hits most directly, would be the hottest region, just like the equatorial climate we're familiar with on our spherical Earth. But as you venture towards the tip, the angle of sunlight would be less direct, leading to cooler temperatures. But the base is still super cold and dark, since the sunlight doesn't directly reach it. So the triangle would be absolutely crazy in terms of temperature changes and climate zones. By the way, you know that cozy blanket of air we call the atmosphere? Well, on our angular Earth, things would get a little topsy-turvy. Gravity would be pulling stronger from the center of each face. The result? The atmosphere would go through some crazy changes. Picture this. At the center of each face, where gravity is strongest, the atmosphere would gather and thicken. It would be like a bustling city, full of air molecules. But as you venture towards the edges, things would start to thin out. The atmosphere would become scarce and very thin. So breathing along the edges would be quite a challenge, and the edges would be a tough neighborhood for life to thrive. Moreover, a thinner atmosphere means less protection from the sun's radiation and solar winds, so corners and edges would be extremely dangerous for humans. Of course, this is all just a playful exploration of what could be. Our Earth loves its spherical shape, and that's a good thing. But there's no harm in imagining wild and wonderful possibilities. So keep your imagination soaring and continue to marvel at the marvels of our amazing planet, however it may be shaped. Picture this. It's a lovely Sunday morning, and you rise from your bed, do some stretching, and open your window to a gorgeous day with clear skies. But hold up, something's odd here. The usually jam-packed street is completely deserted. Where did everyone go? You take a closer look, and to your surprise, you realize that you're the only soul on this planet. What's your next move? Let's get real here. The answer to that question is simple. You can do anything and everything that your heart desires. The world is your playground, and you can create your own adventure. Want to drive a sports car at lightning speed on the freeway? Go ahead, because there's no traffic to hold you back. Feel like playing a round of golf from the top of a skyscraper? Why not? Who cares if you end up breaking a window or two with your golf ball? Have you always dreamed of living in a massive mansion? Guess what? Now you can. You have a world of possibilities in front of you, and nothing can stop you from experiencing them all. Okay, so you've had your fill of all the excitement and thrill, and you're now starting to ponder on the question of what's next. Maybe it's time to get down to business and figure out the reason behind the world's sudden emptiness. Could there be anyone else out there? What if you're not the only one left? You might start searching the city and even venture beyond its limits. But the world is a big place, and you might not come across another living soul. That thought alone can be a bit terrifying, right? So let's move on to more important matters, such as how you're going to survive in this desolate wasteland that's now your kingdom. It's time to face reality and plan out your next steps to ensure that you can make it through this situation, no matter what. The first thing on your to-do list is finding food and clean water. Of course, you'll have a good supply of both for some time, but perishable items such as fruits and vegetables won't last forever, so it's best to consume them first before they go bad. After all, there's nobody operating the power stations that power the refrigeration units in grocery stores, so they will inevitably shut down. Speaking of which, you also need to consider your water source. In the initial stages, try to scavenge every single bottle of water you can find from the nearby stores and bring them back to your sanctuary. But, unfortunately, you'll eventually run out of bottled water, and you'll have to come up with a way to filter your water supply. This will be a vital task to ensure your survival in the long run. Think of laying your hands on a portable water filter like this one. With that, you will be able to take water from any source, be it a river or even a hole you dug up yourself, and drink it in no time after it's been cleansed in this bottle. So you've indulged in all the perishable food items you had stocked up on for days, weeks, or maybe even months. Now it's time to start thinking about the future and your long-term food supplies. Since there's no electricity to keep your fridge and freezer running, you're going to have to rely on non-perishable food items such as rice, beans, and canned goods. These will be your trusty companions in your quest for survival. However, as time passes, you'll need to think about sustainable food sources, and that's where farming skills come into play. You should start learning how to grow your own food before your stocks run out completely. Let's talk about medical supplies. They're a crucial aspect of surviving in a world where there's no one to turn to for medical assistance. Your best bet is to raid as many pharmacies as you can find and stock up on future supplies to prepare for any potential emergencies. It's essential to be extra careful too, since there won't be any doctors around to help you out if you sustain serious injuries. When you're the last human on Earth, you're going to need to learn a whole bunch of survival skills if you want to keep on keeping on. I'm talking hunting, first aid, cooking, and plenty more. It's not just about farming and filtering water, although those are important too. Right now you're probably relying on a bunch of other people, without even realizing it. But in this new world, you're going to have to fend for yourself. The good news is that you've got all the time in the world to learn new things and expand your knowledge. Remember those libraries and bookstores you used to walk past without a second glance? Now they're your ticket to becoming the ultimate survival expert. And yeah, you won't have the internet to help you out, but you'll learn to do things the old-fashioned way. You might also want to have some survival gear with you at all times. You may get in all sorts of trouble with nobody to help you but yourself. So having a hiking toolbox like this one could be a lifesaver. It has everything you need to find your way and stay warm and safe even in the wild, not to mention the city. As much as you may enjoy the solitude, you're gonna need some sort of companionship eventually. Sure, you could get yourself a pet or two, or even build your own personal zoo if you're feeling ambitious. But be careful. You don't want to get eaten by a pack of wolves or lions, do you? Maybe just stick with a dog or a cat, or perhaps a bird that can mimic your voice so you can pretend you're having a conversation. Either way, you're going to need some sort of connection with another living being, so start thinking about your options. So, you've got this whole world to yourself, right? And you can live in any mansion, palace, or hotel you want. Sounds great, doesn't it? But let's be real here. Living in luxury all the time can get old fast. Plus, these buildings will start to crumble and fall apart if there's nobody to take care of them. Maybe run away from the city altogether then. You can go anywhere. The world is your oyster. But before you start packing your bags, remember that you need to find a way to get there. The problem is that all the cars and trucks will be useless because their fuel will go bad after a few years. So, you might want to choose a place to settle down for good. And in my opinion, it's probably a good idea to avoid places with extreme weather conditions. I mean, dealing with a hurricane, blizzard, or tornado all by yourself doesn't sound like a walk in the park. Don't forget about the clothes. Yeah, I know, you can totally raid all the stores and try on all the funky outfits or dress like a celebrity for a while. But let's get real. You're gonna need clothes that will actually help you survive. So make sure you have something for every season, and keep plenty of warm clothes and blankets around. An emergency blanket may come in handy as well. Stock up on these just in case. It doesn't take much space and can save your life. Even if you move to a place where it's hot all the time, it can still get chilly at night, so you gotta be prepared. Hey, I know talking about being the only human left on Earth can be a total bummer. So let's switch to the brighter side of things. With nobody around, you can find all kinds of ways to entertain yourself. Sure, survival skills are important, but you can also learn new hobbies and get creative. Imagine learning to draw, make sculptures, or write your own book. You could be the next Stephen King, except without any competition. What would you call your masterpiece? The Lone Survivor? The Ultimate Survival Guide? The possibilities are endless. Just don't forget to keep talking to yourself or your pet parrot so you don't forget how to use your own voice.
You know the old sayings. To appreciate life just a tad bit more, you sometimes need to walk a mile in a stranger's shoes. But the people surrounding you have roughly the same likes and struggles, right? What if you could experience human life as it was thousands of years ago, or even a couple hundred years? Why not? Trust me, you'll be amazed at the differences. And the similarities for that matter. Let's start with a time before smartphones, before fast food chains, and before even electricity was a thing. I'm talking about the Stone Age. During these times, our early ancestors were all about living in caves, simple huts, or teepees. They didn't do much apart from hunting and gathering for their food. If you'd lived back then, you might have used basic stone and bone tools. You would have needed those things to hunt all sorts of wild animals, from birds to woolly mammoths. Hey, you'd even cook your meals using controlled fire. Yeah, steaks go way back. But people back then weren't all muscle and no brains. These ancient humans were also the first to leave behind art. They used all sorts of funky materials like minerals and charcoal mixed into water, or tree saps to make their engravings. They even carved little figurines from stones, clay, or bones. Now, during those days, humankind also experienced the last ice age, which was a real bummer for a lot of the big mammals that our ancestors used to hunt. Obviously, things started to change. Humans began using smaller, more polished stone tools like spears and arrows. They even started to live near rivers and other bodies of water in nomadic camps. Think glamping, but without the fancy photo filters we use today. Later on, ancient humans switched from hunting and gathering to agriculture and food production. They started domesticating animals and cultivating cereal grains. They used all sorts of fancy new tools like polished hand axes and even began to settle down in the plains. Don't even get me started on the advancements they made in home construction and art. They were weaving, sewing, and making pottery like it was nobody's business. Our next stop in history, ancient Greece. Want to hear about what your home might have looked like back then? Turns out, ancient Greek houses were built around a courtyard or garden. It doesn't sound much different than what we're used to these days, right? But the walls were made of wood and mud bricks. No fancy concrete or steel for them. As for the windows, they were small and without glass. But hey, they had wooden shutters to keep out the hot sun. You probably wouldn't have had much furniture inside. But if you were lucky enough to be on the wealthy side, you might have decorated your walls and floors with colorful tiles and paintings. Unfortunately, when nature called, many homes didn't have a bathroom. So people had to rely on small vessels or even wash in streams they had nearby. I mean, imagine how awkward that must have been. Only the wealthy had the luxury of taking baths at home. At night, ancient Greeks slept on beds stuffed with wool, feathers, or even dry grass. And with no electricity, the only lights came from flickering oil lamps and candles. Wanna talk fashion? Turns out many people walked around barefoot. Some wore leather sandals, or for horse riding, high boots. When it got hot, some rocked wide-brimmed hats to shade their faces from the sun. One thing they definitely did right was jewelry. They sported everything from bracelets to earrings and even necklaces. Now, when it came to eating, men and women usually ate separately, and the rich always ate at home. The less privileged folks would eat in public. But get this, everyone ate with their fingers, so food was cut up in the kitchen first. Fancy being a knight in the Middle Ages next? Back in the day, those fancy pants knights were all about that manor life. But let me tell you, they didn't even own the land proper. Nope, they were granted rights to the income from a manor or other lands by an overlord. And as time went on, these lands were passed down from generation to generation, like a family heirloom. Oh, and forget about dividing that land up between all the heirs. Most lands went straight to the eldest son. Sorry, other siblings. And don't even get me started on the hierarchy. Society was extremely divided back then. Heads of state and the highest-ranking nobility were on top, controlling large pieces of land. Lesser nobles had authority over smaller areas of land and fewer people, and at the bottom of the noble club list were the other knights, who didn't even own land and had to serve other nobles. Not fun, right? However, your daily life might not have been that bad. You might have enjoyed some leisure activities too, like playing games, cue the chess matches, and listening to music of the troubadours. These musicians were incredible songwriters, skilled poets, as well as singers and instrumentalists. Let's proceed with the Renaissance. It was a time of change, excitement, and luxury. People were finally able to enjoy some of the finer things in life, like better clothes and nicer tasting foods. And boy oh boy did they love the arts. The streets were also filled with craftsmen, artisans, and merchants who had some money to spend. But don't get me wrong, life wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for everyone. The farmers and peasants still had to work hard all day long. Their homes were little more than one-room huts, while the wealthy merchants got to live in giant mansions. Sure, those mansions might have been dark and cold and pretty smelly, but at least they had space. Now, let's get to the good stuff. Fashion. Clothing was a big deal during the Renaissance. The rich would dress up in all sorts of fancy clothing, from tight coats for men to long dresses for women. Entertainment was all the rage during the Renaissance. If you lived back then, you would surely have loved going to festivals, sporting events, and playing games like chess, checkers, and backgammon. But the biggest event of all was Carnival. You would dress up in crazy costumes and had big parties. And of course, there was shopping. You would head to the marketplace in town where the local merchants and craftsmen would sell their goods. Money wasn't as regulated as it is today, and each city had its own currency with constantly changing values. Now, if you were lucky enough to go to school during the Renaissance, you were probably wealthy. It was the nobles that mostly learned about grammar and arithmetic, but some studied philosophy, Latin, and public speaking too. There's probably no other time in history more impactful on human life than the Industrial Revolution. What did it really mean though? Well, picture this. Before this time period, people used to make things with their hands, in their own homes or small workshops. But then, someone had a brilliant idea to build big factories and use machines powered by engines to make products in large quantities. The first country to try this new way of doing things was England. But soon, the whole world caught on. The Industrial Revolution started in the cloth industry, where making fabric used to be a slow process. But with inventions like the flying shuttle, things got a lot easier. With all these new machines and factories, people needed a way to get raw materials in and finished products out. That's where transportation came in. The steamboat appeared in 1807. Then, someone came up with the brilliant idea to put a steam engine on top of wheels. And then on top of rails. Ta-da! The railroad was born in 1825. As you can imagine, all these things had a big impact on where people lived and how they worked. You might have needed to leave the countryside and move into bigger towns and cities to find work. But the cities were often dirty and crowded. And while the machines made work easier in some ways, factory work created a lot of problems for the workers. You might not have earned much, and the work was often dangerous. You know how Stephen Hawking said, "The best evidence we have that time travel is not possible and never will be, is that we have not been invaded by hordes of tourists from the future." But what if these tourists come to our time, but they do it secretly? You may even have met one of them. Let's see the most famous time travelers. Meet Orin. He's a cyborg who came to us from the year 2050 to stop the coming end of the world. In 2020, he appeared on a TV show where he said the whole world was inside the Matrix. Then he hit the headlines and gave an interview to a popular YouTube channel. As proof that he's a cyborg, he demonstrated his robotic voice, which can be made in a simple computer program. He also called himself We because he declared himself a collective consciousness that had come to save humanity. Orin became famous for his predictions about the near future, but it turned out that many experts had already announced these forecasts earlier. He also said that a huge corporation was suppressing humanity, and we were inside a complex computer simulation. If we don't improve or care for each other and nature, the end will begin in 2050. Orin no longer appears on major shows, but he has a small fan base of people who love all sorts of fantastic theories. Another time traveler is Adam Archin, who came to us from 2045. There was an interview with him on YouTube where he shared some details about the future of the US, after which the video went viral and hit the lines in many newspapers. Archin reported that the last official president of the country would be the daughter of Martin Luther King III, and she would become the greatest US president in history. Another exciting event that Archin announced is supposed to happen in 2028. He said that people would learn about the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations. He added that these creatures wouldn't come from outer space. The traveler also noted that the world would switch to a single digital currency and all cash would disappear. Of course, no one believed him, so the experts conducted a lie detector test. And Adam Archin successfully passed it. He said that he had a chip in his hand to facilitate time travel. An extraterrestrial civilization would arrive on Earth in 2028, and in 2045, people would be closer to robots. The lie detector didn't state that Archin was lying, but this doesn't mean he told the truth, since the device can be deceived with the help of special training. In any case, in 2028, we will find out whether Archin was right or not. All these time travelers arrive in the past and, for some reason, don't use knowledge from the future. What would you do if you could go back 50 years? Perhaps you would invest money in shares of some young company that will become a big, expensive corporation. In that case, everyone would believe that you really came from the past. And by the way, one guy did it. He invested $800 in the stock exchange and made $350 million out of it. This guy's name was Andrew Carlson, and he hit a big jackpot in 2003. However, he didn't manage to enjoy a rich life because the FBI came for him. Andrew sold some stocks and bought others, and did this very successfully. Thus, in a few months, he became a millionaire. The Securities Commission couldn't believe in such coincidences, so it called the FBI. During the interrogation, everyone was sure Andrew would begin to justify himself and say he was lucky. But instead, he calmly replied that he came from the year 2256 with the help of a time machine. Of course, no one took it seriously. But when the FBI started looking for information about this man, they found nothing. Andrew Carlson had no documents. He was not in any database. He just appeared out of nowhere and started making a lot of money. He was interrogated for about 4 hours, and he behaved pretty calmly. It seemed as if he was telling the truth. However, he didn't tell them the time machine's location. When the press found out about this man, he immediately became a celebrity. Well-known news sites began to write about Andrew Carlson. Articles have appeared in Japan, Australia, Germany, the UK, and other countries. And of course, journalists started calling the FBI to find out more details about this guy. And the FBI told them that the whole story was fiction and that there was no Andrew Carlson. Information about him appeared on an internet resource known for its fake news. At some point, the article about the time traveler somehow got into Yahoo, where it went viral. So, as we see, all statements about time travelers are either fiction or a lie. Conversations about such travels appeared thanks to fantastic films and books. Pop culture has greatly influenced this fantastic concept and created several theories claiming that time travel is real. And some people believe that, especially those who are far from science. But what do real scientists think about this? Are such trips really possible? Let's try to find out. Scientists say yes, time travel is real because we're now traveling in time. Time is moving forward and we're moving with it. We call it a journey. But if we need to get into the future or go back to the past, everything is much more complicated here. Remember Einstein's little theory of relativity? It says that time moves relative to the observer and has no constant value. To understand better, here's a simple example. 10 hairs on your head. Is it a lot or a little? 10 hairs in a bowl of soup. Is that a lot or a little? Everything is relative and depends on the conditions. The same thing happens with time and space. If we move at a tremendous speed, close to the speed of light, then time slows down for us. The perception of time becomes different for a person who's running and for one who's standing still. If we're near some heavy object, let's say 1,000 times heavier than the sun, then the time next to this object also slows down, thanks to its strong gravity. In this sense, time travel is possible. If you're an old person and meet your friend as young as he was 50 years ago, "Why are you so young?" "Oh, I've been flying in space at a tremendous speed all this time, that's all." But this doesn't mean that this friend just sat on the ship for 50 years and didn't age. No, time was different for him. 10 years for you on Earth is a long period of time, but for him, these 10 years passed like half an hour. Gravity and speed bend time. For this reason, astronaut Scott Kelly, who spent a year and a half in orbit, became 5 milliseconds younger than his twin brother after coming to Earth. All this time Scott spent inside the ship flying in orbit at high speed, and he was also further away from the gravitational center of the planet. So, time was slower for him by 5 milliseconds than for his brother. Objectively, time always runs at the same speed, but its speed changes inside the perceptions of different observers under different conditions. That's what the theory of relativity is about. But what about jumping into the future or the past, like in movies? Wormholes will help you with this. This is something like tunnels that pass through space and time and can connect different time segments in different places in the universe. They are like cheat codes that can break the laws of the universe. Wormholes are elusive, have different sizes, are unpredictable, appear in space, and vanish. But their main problem is that wormholes only exist in theory and sci-fi and have never been noticed in our universe by scientists.
Some strange seismic activity begins all over the world. Volcanoes on the planet are waking up, but instead of lava, fiery stones, and black ash, they release an invisible gas that slowly fills the atmosphere. This gas is safe for all mammals and insects, but for some reason, it harms people. Gas masks, medication, nothing helps. It's like Earth says, "Hey people, I've had enough. Get out of here." To survive, humanity decides to move to a place where the gas can't reach – underwater. We begin global migration to the seas and oceans. The first thing we need to do is build underwater cities. Engineers use anti-corrosive metals and building materials that are not destroyed by moisture, so there are no problems with the construction. But there are too many people on the planet, which means we need to move further and further from the shore, and the deeper the bottom, the stronger the pressure. To build an ordinary underwater house, it's necessary to create equipment capable of withstanding the water column. Also, it requires expensive materials. Stainless steel is not enough. There should be strong alloys of metals to resist colossal pressure. All of this takes a lot of time, and while some are building cities moving deeper foot by foot, others are crowding in coastal parts. Ponds and lakes are becoming the best places to live. First, it's much easier to swim in fresh water. People spend much less energy and time on movements there. Secondly, fresh water doesn't require powerful filtration used in seas and oceans. And thirdly, there are fewer people in ponds and lakes, which makes the water cleaner. Therefore, all the rich people live there, and the poor survive in the oceans. Famous auto brands create stylish submarines and closed boats with filtration systems. Scientists, together with engineers, come up with a technology that quickly extracts oxygen from water. One box with this technology constantly fills every house with fresh air. And another special box sucks all the carbon dioxide out of the room and releases it into the water. Clothing brands create stylish diving suits. The ocean is cold, so designers install a heating system inside clothing. People used to collect sneakers, but now they wear fashionable fins. There are thousands of fin designs with various engravings and patterns. People create underwater mills to generate electricity and build underwater vacuum pipes inside which high-speed trains drive. But the most remarkable thing is aquatic farms, where livestock eats grass and seeds. There are also incubators with plants that produce extra oxygen. The human body is also changing. The skin becomes smoother and the muscles get stronger. Life in the ocean is a continuous overcoming of water resistance. And you also need to carry an oxygen tank with you. So every day is like a good training in a gym. Take a look at the Olympic swimming champions. Now, most people have such a figure. Doctors, biologists, and engineers unite to create unique masks that allow people to breathe in the water like fish without oxygen tanks. People get much less sunlight underwater and lose vitamin D. This causes depression and weakens the immune system. To fix this problem, scientists build huge ultraviolet lamps that illuminate the entire seabed. People are getting used to a new life. In a sense, it's not much different from the previous one. Everyone also goes to cafes, cinemas, shopping, and the gym. People get an education, work, and use the same law system. Only now, instead of walking down the streets, they swim. Water resources are rich in oil, minerals, and other valuable things. This ensures the growth of the economy. Megacities have appeared in the deep waters of the oceans, and seas and lakes are becoming resorts. The conditions on the surface have become completely unsuitable for humans, and the next generations don't even know what it is like to live on land. Meanwhile, tracks of people on the surface disappear. Abandoned houses are overgrown with moss and vines. Animals fill cities. Seismic activity causes earthquakes that carry all buildings underground. Humanity made room for a new species, fish. Several 100 million years ago, the ocean was inhabited by giant monsters. The smaller fish couldn't fight these big guys, so they swam as close to the shore as possible. Then, over the years of evolution, they began to change. Fish grew limbs and learned to crawl on the ground. And so, after a couple 100 million years, they began to turn into mammals. And after that, people appeared. At least that's what the theory of evolution says. Approximately the same story happened with modern fish. Only instead of sea monsters, they faced people in the ocean. Bright light, oxygen consumption, emissions of harmful gases, and garbage forced the fish to migrate first into the depths of the oceans. And then, as humans began to master the depths, the fish swam to the surface. But not because there wasn't enough space in the ocean, but because people started catching too much fish. It's problematic to grow grains, fruits, and vegetables underwater, even in closed farms. Therefore, to replenish the food supply, people just started fishing. To survive, the marine inhabitants had to swim to the surface. Now fish grow limbs to crawl. But when the dangers of people are left behind, the fish face a new problem: mammals. The population of bears, tigers, wolves, and all animals has increased since people left the surface. Now the predators are the rulers of the continents. The hardest struggle for survival begins. Fish learn to disguise themselves to hide from enemies. Many grow venomous spines, while others gain the ability to strike hard with their fins. But octopuses evolve the least. These clever creatures are the first to grab sticks and stones to fend off bears. They learn to dig holes in the ground and pluck fruit from trees, and soon they become heads of the sea kingdom. Meanwhile, people are building powerful spaceships to find another planet to inhabit. There's too little space in the ocean, and the water is too dirty. Ventilation systems are pumping too much oxygen out of the ocean, releasing a lot of carbon dioxide. Seaweed and phytoplankton, which provide more than half of the world's oxygen reserves, are disappearing because of human activity. People understand they have to leave Earth. Gradual migration begins. Humanity has been evacuated from the planet on giant ships for several centuries. They're flying to an exoplanet, just a couple hundred light-years from Earth. Octopuses are becoming more intelligent than mammals. They see millions of giant ships flying out of the ocean and rising to the sky. The picture seems familiar to them. There's a memory of similar events somewhere in the depths of their DNA. The brain of octopuses develops faster thanks to the gas coming from the volcanoes. They become full-fledged masters of Earth. Animals and fish live next to them as pets. Then the octopuses build houses, invent the wheel, and open fire. From this moment, a new history of the planet begins, the era of octopuses. They create their civilization and find traces of the old one. Archaeologists with tentacles suggest that strange creatures lived on Earth once upon a time. They had 4 limbs and could walk upright. These creatures built their civilization here, but something happened, and these guys just disappeared. And while the octopuses are trying to figure out what happened to the previous civilization, people surf the expanses of space and meet a new, highly intelligent life. These humanoids look like octopuses since they have long tentacles, large eyes, and a developed brain. They tell people that once upon a time, they lived on planet Earth, but then plants and trees began to emit something called oxygen that poisoned the air. At first, the octopuses hid in the ocean, but oxygen filled the water, so they decided to leave the planet. Some of them adapted to the new conditions and stayed in the water with the fish. People tell them what happened next, including the history of humankind. The space octopuses realize that the story has now looped.
Tired of waiting for colonization? Does the Earth seem way too boring with all its problems and mosquitoes? Well, have no fear. It's time to take matters into your own hands and build your own planet. But before you start reaching for the cosmic glue and glitter, there are a few things you'll need to consider. Let's start our ultimate DIY project. First of all, we need to choose a location. Every planet has to orbit a star, right? In a cosmic buffet, every star has its own unique flavor. To keep things organized, astronomers use the so-called stellar classification system. The massive stars are the divas of the cosmos. They're huge, bright, and are always stealing the spotlight. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. They have a short lifespan, burning out super fast, like a candle. They also have huge gravity, so be careful that your planet doesn't get sucked in. The dwarf stars, on the other hand, may be small, but they make up for it with their stamina. They can burn for trillions of years, which means that their planets have plenty of time to develop life. Super hot stars are blue or white ones, while the cold stars are usually red or orange. Yeah, seems like it should be the other way around, but we're not the ones making the rules. So what do we choose? Well, the planets around the blue and white stars could be scorched and fried, like a crispy chicken nugget. On the other hand, with cool red stars, our planet may turn into an ice ball. If that's your preference, then sure. But you can always pick a nice middle ground, a yellow star like our sun, for example. Not too cold, not too hot, but just right. Now that you've picked the star, let's start building the planet. The heart of the planet is its core. The core creates a magnetic field, an invisible force that protects a planet from harsh cosmic rays and charged particles. If it weren't for this field, the planet would be fried by the star's radiation, like a well-done burger. But the magnetic field isn't always a force for good. On some planets, like Jupiter, it's so strong that it creates super intense radiation belts and some crazy weather. If you were hoping to use a compass to find your way around on such a planet, forget it. The magnetic field would have the needle spinning like a breakdancer on caffeine. So, if you pick a small light core, the planet will have less protection from solar radiation, like tanning without sunscreen. On the other hand, larger cores can generate more heat, which can lead to more volcanic activity and earthquakes. The best option is a medium-sized core made mostly of iron and nickel. Enough to keep the bad things away, but not too strong to turn a planet into a cosmic hot potato. Once the heart is in place, we can move on to the next step. Planets are like onions. They have layers. Most planets have three main layers: the core, the crust, and the mantle. The core is the filling, as we've already discussed. The mantle is like a hot and gooey layer of caramel between the crust and the core. And the crust is like a thin layer of icing on a planetary cake, covering its surface. But not all planets are built the same way. Because of that, we have tons of options. First up, we have the gas giants, the big boys of the universe. In our solar system, it's Jupiter and Saturn. They don't have a crust at all. They're basically huge balls of gas, like hydrogen and helium, hence the name. Next, we have the ice giants, like Uranus and Neptune. They're like younger, cooler siblings of gas giants. These planets don't really have a solid surface, but it's not pure gas either. They're made mostly of water, ammonia, and methane ice. There are also ocean worlds, and no, they aren't made of pure water. They do have some kind of solid surface, but it's located so deep, and the ocean on their surface is so huge that it kinda does look like a giant water drop. Finally, we have terrestrial planets, like the Earth. They're made mostly of rock and metal. These planets have a surface to stand on, and usually come with a cool mineral collection. And let's not forget about the dwarf planets, the small but mighty. Pluto is probably the most famous one, but there are others in our solar system: Eris, Ceres, Haumea, and so on. They're the scrappy underdogs of the planetary world, always trying to prove their worth, but never making it to full-fledged planets. Which type do you like the most? Gas giants are probably the coolest ones with their enormous sizes, crazy winds, and scary lightning. We also need to create an atmosphere. It's the outer layer of a planet that plays a huge role in its climate and weather. It's also the planet's ultimate protector. Did you know that 90 to 95% of meteors burn up in the Earth's atmosphere? Imagine what would happen if they didn't. Dense and hazy atmospheres, the ones you'll find on places like Venus, have thick layers of carbon dioxide and sulfuric acid. In other words, it's not a planet, but an oven. It's so hot that you could cook a pizza on its surface in no time and get cooked yourself. Next, we have thin and wispy atmospheres, like on Mars. The thin layer of carbon dioxide makes its surface pressure about 1% that of Earth's. On planets like these, you could fly like a superhero if you had a good enough jetpack. Then we have mixed atmospheres, like the one on Earth. The layers of nitrogen, oxygen, and other gases create the perfect conditions for life as we know it. It's also where we get to enjoy sunny days, rainbows, and of course, water. And last but not least, exotic atmospheres. You'll find them on planets like Neptune, where the layers of hydrogen, helium, and methane create a blue-colored world that looks like a giant marble. They're super weird and unusual, so just perfect for creative planet builders. Almost done. The final question is, would you like your planet to have life on it? In that case, there are some things you should consider. For example, it should be located in the habitable zone. This is the sweet spot around a star where conditions are just right for liquid water to exist on the surface. Make sure your planet isn't too close or too far from its star. And don't forget about the temperatures. For example, you'll want a good amount of oxygen for a planet to be nice and warm, but not too much that everything spontaneously combusts. Of course, we need some water, but not too much, and a stable climate. You don't want your planet to be going through extreme swings in temperature or moisture. That's a recipe for extinction, not evolution. Oh, and the orbit should be stable, so that there are no major astronomical events that could throw things off. As you can see, this type of planet is very picky. No wonder it's so hard to find extraterrestrial life. Anyway, now that we've finished messing around in the Planet Creation Editor, how do we even build it? Well, how about terraforming? It's when we deliberately alter a planet's atmosphere, temperature, and other conditions to make it habitable for humans and other Earth-based life forms. For example, we could release greenhouse gases on Mars to warm up the planet and create a thicker atmosphere. But this method is more like polishing a monstrosity that was given to you by a character randomizer. What about building from scratch? That's something straight out of sci-fi. But maybe in the future, we could do that, using large-scale 3D printing or nanotechnology. We could create the basic structure and then add all the necessary conditions for life to exist. Of course, all this is still purely theoretical. But while creating a planet artificially is still a long way off, there are many creative ideas and concepts being explored by scientists and sci-fi writers. Who knows what the future might hold for the possibility of creating new worlds?
If Einstein was born in the 1500s, his hair would definitely be slicker and probably parted in the middle. We'd seen him with a puffy chest and a neutral expression. And most importantly, he would wear these funny aristocratic shoes with delicate lace. Now here's a crazy thought. Let's say Beethoven was an adult in the early 2000s. I'm thinking he would look like a member of the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. Definitely no crazy hair, since he would be rocking a buzz cut. Honestly, I think I love this version of him. Now, if The Scream by Edward Munch was an early Renaissance painting, this is what we would see. A man in a laced-up long-sleeve vest with a pouch on his belt to carry water and essentials, of course. Picture an old Bilbo Baggins, if you will. And what if Selena Gomez had been born in the 1920s? Now I'm thinking she'd be pictured wearing a beautiful polka dot dress with a short hairdo and a cloche hat. Would Brad Pitt also be considered one of the most beautiful men alive back in ancient Egypt? I'd say absolutely. These pastel tunics are a great fit for him. Oh, and we saw him in Troy. He sure can sport sandals. Oh, and who's that? It's Spider-Man, but all the way back in the Victorian era. He still has his red mask, but even superheroes had to be formal. That's why he's wearing a vest with precious-looking gold buttons. And not to mention, this Spider-Man has a cape. Those long-tailored capes men used to wear. And that's Doctor Strange. I have to say, he seems to fit perfectly into the Victorian period. He's a little bit fancier here. His cape got an upgrade, and it's embroidered with golden threads and some brooches. Jump to the future. AI generated what celebrities would look like in 40 years from now. So this is Harry Styles. I'd say a mixture of an aged Jim Carrey with Daniel Craig maybe. And what about Billie Eilish? With natural gray hair, she looks like Tilda Swinton in Narnia. Gorgeous, if you ask me. Once every few years, one of the most authentic carnivals in the world opens its doors to everyone who wants to have fun. You can find everything here: mutant shows, acrobats, magicians, and exotic animals. But the most mysterious attraction is the Superpower Shop. For a mere $5, you can get some unusual abilities for 24 hours. Every year, the shop changes its repertoire, and this time, it's dedicated to vision. So, 5 friends, Peter, Harry, Mary, Ben, and Norman, come to the shop and take out bundles of paper from the magic ball. They open them, and at that moment, the ball releases lightning. Now, each of the friends has super sight. Harry gets the ability to see infrared radiation, and it allows him to see in the dark. But that doesn't mean he'd go blind in daylight. Harry sees not colors and light, but temperature. His eyes have turned into a night vision device. Snakes have this superpower. It helps them to catch their prey. But in some places, such ability can make your life harder. If you come to the North Pole, you will see darkness because of how cold it is there. But if you come to a desert, you may go blind. Harry can see living people and animals from afar, thanks to his infrared vision, but he can't see cold objects up close. Each person's face appears orange, and the tips of their nose and ears have a pale shade, as these are the coldest parts of the body. If Harry gets lost in the woods, he can easily find his way to warmth, as he'll notice any increase in temperature from afar. He enjoys the temperature pattern when the heat from a flame goes up, dissolves in the air, and disappears. Harry sees how the legs of running people glow, as blood circulates rapidly there. A boxer's hands glow, and a swimmer's back glows too. Harry finds walking in warm weather difficult, even when it rains. He can't cook because the frying pan blinds him. But the most dangerous place for Harry is in a sauna. The day ends, and normal vision returns to Harry. Peter can now see in ultraviolet light. And there's nothing cool here at first glance. Ultraviolet is electromagnetic radiation that the sun, computer screens, and some gadgets emit. So Peter can see an unusual glow that slightly irritates his eyes. In the sky, he sees brighter stars and even the glow of distant galaxies. Thanks to ultraviolet light, our skin gets a tan. Peter watches as rays invisible to a normal person fall on the skin and burn it a little. Indoors, there isn't so much ultraviolet light, and Peter's vision gets worse. He doesn't distinguish colors well, and the picture in front of his eyes becomes dim. Peter's eyes stop seeing at night since there's little ultraviolet light. Ordinary light bulbs don't make the situation better for him, but ultraviolet ones do. When Peter is straining, his eyes begin to release ultraviolet light. This means he doesn't need to wash his hands since ultraviolet is a powerful antibacterial agent. Peter can look at his palms and destroy all the germs. Also, he can tell fake bills from real ones and see fingerprints on any object. He would make an excellent detective with such an ability. But one day passes and his vision returns to normal. Mary gets the ability to see radio waves. They're used in radios, satellites, and many other technologies. Almost all gadgets emit these waves, so Mary sees all electronic devices glowing. Earth's magnetic field produces radio waves. The same happens on other planets, so Mary sees Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury in the sky. But not Mars, since it has no magnetic field. Luminous waves fly everywhere, caught by radios and other devices. An ordinary radio receiver intercepts radio waves and converts them into sound. This is how we hear music and live broadcasts. The same thing happens in Mary's brain. Her eyes see radio waves, and her brain converts signals into sounds. And that's the problem. Mary sees radio waves everywhere. Music, voices speaking in different languages, white noise, and advertisements are floating in her head simultaneously. It drives her mad. But as soon as Mary closes her eyes, everything falls silent. So she decides to sleep until her superpower disappears. Ben gets gamma vision. Gamma rays come from the hottest and most energetic objects in the universe. These rays have such power that they are destructive to our DNA. The sun, distant stars, explosions of supernovas, and black holes emit an enormous amount of gamma radiation. But Ben can't see it because our planet's atmosphere doesn't let gamma radiation through. However, even if he went to the ISS, he would still not notice anything because exploding stars are too far away. He can't see gamma radiation on Earth in radioactive areas. He doesn't need to use a dosimeter to determine what level of radiation is near an abandoned nuclear reactor. Ben sees the radioactivity of some objects, which means he can warn people about this danger. An excellent ability for some atomic scientists, but quite useless for an ordinary guy. In some town on a highly radioactive planet, Ben would become the most welcome friend in any company looking for stranger things. He would easily find a clean place with a low level of radiation where people could grow fruit and vegetables. He'd know the most polluted areas and wouldn't let people go there. Also, if there was some radioactive monster hiding in the woods, Ben would know its location thanks to the light emitted by the beast. But in a common town like his, it's a pretty useless feature. Ben waits for 24 hours and gets his normal sight back, but feels no difference. So, Norman gets X-ray vision. That doesn't mean he can see through walls. He sees X-rays in a hospital and understands how the whole thing works. Doctors release X-rays from a special machine. The rays pass through our skin, muscles, and tissues, but can't pass through bones. Then, when the rays reach this blue film, there are shadows left by bones. In a normal sense, X-rays work like the sun, but they pass through soft tissues. Norman gains the ability to see how X-rays pass through his body. And if he closes his eyes, he will still see a bright light because his eyelids won't protect him. And that's where the cool tricks end. However, it would be much cooler if he could emit these rays from his eyes. With just a little effort, he'd be able to look at a person and see their skeleton. Norman would be a great doctor or scientist, but using such an ability for a long time is impossible, since X-rays can harm human bodies, especially if you don't have a protective suit. So his superpower disappears after 24 hours. The friends decide to return to the carnival to try something else. They enter the superpower shop, and the magician working there offers them something absolutely fantastic. "Do you want to see all the radiation and waves in the universe?" he asks. "Of course we do," the friends answer. The magician taps the floor 3 times with his cane. Clouds are gathering inside his magic ball. Then lightning bolts fly out of it. An unknown force lifts the friends off the floor. Their eyes light up with a bright glow. The magician knocks 2 more times, and everything ends. "Now, go outside," he says. The friends leave the shop and close their eyes because of how bright all colors are. Everything is pulsing with different hues. The sky is shimmering with hundreds of colors. People are glowing, and the grass is emitting a purple light. Then it turns orange, then blue. The light around is constantly changing. It takes the form of waves, then straight lines. Then it becomes dim, bright, transparent, and saturated. The friends close their eyes, but the light doesn't disappear. Various kinds of radiation pass through their closed eyelids. It blinds and is too hard to handle. The friends ask to stop it. The magic ends. The guys realize that their human vision is the best. Their eyes see this world perfectly, and they don't need any extra abilities. Well, running faster would be nice. Starting with Van, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Thanks to special PIM particles technology, the heroes of the movie were able to shrink the real van to the size of a Hot Wheels toy. Hoverboard, Back to the Future. In 1989, the film's creators envisioned this type of transport being commonplace in 2015. Reality doesn't quite resemble the movie, but we do have a world record for a flight on a hoverboard. Jetpack, GTA San Andreas. Character dialogue in the game tells us the cost to develop the jetpack, dubbed the Black Project, was $60 million. The main character must take it from a heavily guarded base. Firebolt Broomstick, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. The fastest broomstick in this magical world could accelerate to 150 miles per hour in just 10 seconds, almost like a Bugatti. Magic Carpet, 1001 Nights. Its maximum speed is unknown, but we know that it loses its magic abilities if damaged. Standard Cart, Mario Kart. The Super Mario Kart handbook encourages cheating to win the game with the words, "Always keep an eye on your opponent's screen." Light Cycle, Tron Legacy. This bike actually exists, and it's street legal. You can get yourself one for $55,000. Speeder Bike, Star Wars. This thing can accelerate to 310 miles per hour, faster than a flying arrow. Though, in the real world during film shooting, it was only going 5 miles per hour. Ah, the magic of editing. Lightning McQueen, Cars. He's something between a Ford GT and a Corvette. His number 95 is an Easter egg. Pixar's first movie, Toy Story, came out in 1995. The Gigahorse, Mad Max Fury Road. An impractical gas guzzler from the Mad Max universe has 1,200 horsepower. That's like 2 Lamborghini Hurricanes. The DeLorean, Back to the Future. The famous trilogy about time travel made this car so popular, the manufacturer decided to restore its production after 30 years. The Mystery Machine. Scooby-Doo would definitely be scared if he knew that such vans sell for almost $60,000 these days. Zoinks! The Pink Sedan, The Simpsons. For 28 years, the creators of the animated series kept the intrigue alive about what kind of car the family had. But in one of the episodes, we finally found out that it's a 1986 Plymouth Junkerola. The Tumbler, The Dark Knight. Despite its bulky appearance, it's still a high-speed car. It can go from 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds. There's a version of this Batmobile that's street legal. You can get one for $1 million. The Pursuit Special, Mad Max Fury Road. The last of the V8 Interceptors had a gas-guzzling V8 engine, a real luxury in this fictional dystopian world. Chevrolet Camaro, Transformers. When it transforms into Bumblebee, this Chevy gets 17 feet tall. Bumblebee's character traits were based on Marty McFly from Back to the Future. Kit, Knight Rider. This car is a heavily modified Pontiac Firebird. Kit's main feature was artificial intelligence, and the name is an acronym for Knight Industries 2000. The Black Beauty, Green Hornet. The highly modified 1965 Imperial Chrysler Crown was gorgeous and dangerous. It was full of all the gadgets a superhero and his sidekick could need to fight crime. It was driven by none other than Bruce Lee as Kato. The Ectomobile, Ghostbusters. This was an old 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor ambulance. Any scenes showing the car backfiring were real. The thing actually broke down on the Brooklyn Bridge during filming. The Night Bus, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. A bus as tall as a giraffe, its height caused a lot of inconvenience during filming. The 3-story bus couldn't pass under bridges, so they made the third deck removable. The Cat Bus, My Neighbor Totoro. This unusual living bus moves on 12 legs. Its interior is soft and covered with fur, and the cat's eyes are the headlights. The Terror, Master of the World by Jules Verne. This amphibious machine could move on land, in the air, on and underwater. On land, it could reach speeds of 150 miles per hour. In the air, 200. Not bad for a story written in 1904. T-70 X-Wing Starfighter, Star Wars. It can accelerate to 650 miles per hour and travel at 100 megalights per hour. Its design isn't very efficient though. It probably wouldn't be able to fly in real life. Rex, Metal Gear Solid. The name Rex was given to it because of its similar appearance to the T-Rex. The cockpit is in the metallic dinosaur's jaws. Mumakil, or Elephant as they call him in Westron. This giant elephant-like creature is like a natural tank thanks to its thick skin. Arrows and spears can't get through it. Appa, Avatar, The Last Airbender. This is a flying bison-like creature that accompanies Aang in his adventures. Appa may look cute and cuddly, but he's as big as a school bus. AT-AT Walker, the most recognizable walking machine from the Star Wars universe. The inspiration for its design was the Paraceratherium. Say it with me now. Paraceratherium, a prehistoric hornless rhino that lived 30 million years ago. The Dreadnought. This is a giant tanker that would nearly take up the length of a tennis court. It's the most powerful car in the Death Race universe. The Blackbird, X-Men. The team of superhero mutants gets around in a jet highly inspired by a Lockheed SR-71. Only theirs can take off and land vertically. It can accelerate up to 2,175 miles per hour. Millennium Falcon, Star Wars. The fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy also exists in real life. An exact replica was built to shoot one of the films. Sandcrawler, Star Wars. The Jawa's giant moving shelter is equipped with a magnetic field that lets the machine swallow up metal and droids like a vacuum cleaner. Tripod, The War of the Worlds. This terrifying machine had a heat ray and tubes that emit a cloud of toxic black smoke. These aliens would have easily taken over our planet, save for bacteria they weren't immune to, but humanity was. Oops, spoiler. The Black Pearl, Pirates of the Caribbean. This is the fastest vessel in the pirate universe. The ship used for filming is actually called the Sunset. The Flying Dutchman, Pirates of the Caribbean. According to legend, the captain of this ship brought a curse on the entire crew, and they couldn't go ashore. The curse has not been lifted, so perhaps this ship is still drifting on the oceans. The Endurance, Interstellar. The movie was incredibly precise in its details. This ring-shaped station, almost as wide as a Boeing 747 wingspan, could work in real life. Howl's Moving Castle. It's gigantic and intimidating, but the massive cannon on its front doesn't work. The 20-story high castle moves almost completely silently. Nautilus, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. This fictional submarine was as long as 3 blue whales and reached highway speeds. The most isolated place on Earth, Point Nemo in the South Pacific, was named after the ship's captain. Wait, it wasn't named for the little clownfish in the Disney movie? Gypsy Danger, Pacific Rim. This giant robot was created to fight Godzilla-type monsters. It's 10 times heavier than an Airbus A330. Megazord, Power Rangers. Each of the mighty morphing Power Rangers could summon their own Zord robot. But when enemies got too big, the team assembled into one Megazord that's taller than the Statue of Liberty. Normandy, Mass Effect. This is the frigate that Commander Shepard used to save the galaxy 3 times. It had an excellent stealth system that made it invisible to other ships. SHIELD Helicarrier, Marvel Universe. This massive aircraft simply couldn't exist in real life. But there's much more advanced technology in this fictional world, so they managed to supply energy to a machine this size. USS Enterprise, Star Trek. There were 9 Enterprise starships in total. This one was equipped with a warp drive, which allowed it to travel much faster than the speed of light. Snowpiercer. It's a giant among trains. When the world was frozen in a new ice age, this train traveled non-stop on a ring around the Earth. Imperial Star Destroyer, Star Wars. We've officially entered Mile territory. The cost of this colossal ship was almost 4 billion Imperial credits. For comparison, in the Star Wars universe, you can buy a small spaceship for just 10,000 credits. London, Mortal Engines. Yes, it's a moving city. The mega metropolis 3 times the height of the Burj Khalifa got around with the help of 7 giant wheels. It absorbed other small cities along the way. Standard Island, Propeller Island. This oval-shaped floating island is 4 miles long and 3 miles wide. It was made to travel the waters of the Pacific Ocean. Oh, and only millionaires live on it. V'ger, Star Trek. This is a creature that looks like a spaceship. In the Star Trek universe, USS Enterprise could fly freely inside this monster. The Death Star, Star Wars. The massive spherical space station has 560 decks and holds 2.4 million passengers and crew. Uh-oh, kaboom. Oops, spoiler. TARDIS, Doctor Who. From the outside, it looks like a standard UK police box. But if we talk about the inside of the Doctor's time machine, well, its size is infinite.
Try to imagine what it would be like if you woke up one day and everything around you was pink. And I mean literally, not just having a think pink vibe. Everything from your walls to your bed, desk, armchair, and even the clothes you wear would be rosy. Would you be able to live in such a world for a whole week? Your first thought might be, is there something wrong with my eyes? For most people, the answer is no. Even if there was something wrong with your vision, the chances are you wouldn't end up seeing just one single color for the rest of your life. Most people who are colorblind are born that way, even though there are rare cases in which you can develop this condition later in life. And even those people who are totally colorblind see the world only in black, white, and gray. Most people with color blindness have problems perceiving certain colors. Their greatest difficulty is distinguishing the shades of the same color. But let's get back to our pink world, shall we? Is pink a special color for our brain? When you think about pink objects, you most likely associate them with emotions like love and kindness. In some cases, looking at the color pink for longer periods of time can actually make people feel more agitated. In sports, teams have been known to paint the opposing team's locker room pink in an attempt to decrease their energy and performance. This tactic was implemented by an American coach who believed the all-pink room would mess with the minds of the opposing teams. What if I told you that this specific shade of pink you woke up to had special powers, though? In the 1970s, a scientist named Alexander Schaus found a color that made people feel calm and relaxed. After lots of experiments to test the effects of different colors on people's behavior, he found this specific color which he named the Schaus pink. His study showed that when people looked at a bright color, they lost strength in their muscles. But when they looked at the color blue, their strength returned to normal. The researcher talked about this in public lectures and even showed it on TV. He invited a bodybuilder and concluded that they could not do a single bicep curl after staring at the pink color. Schaus was so sure of his discovery that he even suggested that prisons should paint holding cells pink to calm people down. 2 officers at a US prison tested this idea by painting one holding cell pink and found that some inmates became calmer after being in the pink cell for 15 minutes. In any case, Schaus's original research hasn't been proven to be true by the following studies, but that doesn't mean you can't test it out for yourself. There's no way to tell how your brain might react to living in a pink world for a day, a week, or even a whole month. It all has to do with your previous experience with this color. If it was a happy one, you might actually like living in a pink environment. However, it may be hard on your eyes after a certain point. But we can't say that the colors we surround ourselves with don't affect us. Carl Jung, a famous Swiss psychoanalyst, developed a theory of color psychology also known as Jungian color theory. He believed that each color meant something different somewhere in the back of our mind and had the power to reveal deeper thoughts. He thought that colors could be used to understand an individual's innermost thoughts and feelings. For example, he considered the color blue to be formal and precise, while green made people feel relaxed and patient. While looking at the color yellow, people became more sociable. And if you liked the color red, it meant you were competitive and strong-willed. Pink isn't the only color people have studied to see its effects on the brain. Let's take green for instance. Would you feel better living in a green world? Well, looking at this color can actually help you focus better. Studies have shown that people who take short breaks to look at pictures of green things, like trees or grass, concentrate better on boring tasks and make fewer mistakes. This is because green is a soothing color that is easy for our eyes and brain to see. I mean, it's the color we often find in nature, so it's no wonder most of us find it soothing. When it comes to red and orange, we should use these in moderation. So, no orange houses for me, thank you. These colors can make you feel more energized and active, but too much can be bad. Researchers concluded that being surrounded by red or orange for long periods of time can make us fussy. Let's not forget about blue. It can make you feel calm and rested. But it can also make you feel gloomy, especially those darker shades. Waking up in a blue world might come with its own set of problems, depending on the shade. Then, there's the problem with blue light. It's the type of light screens emit. At times, it can be bad for your sleep because such a light can trick your brain into thinking it's still daylight. It can make it hard for your body to produce the hormones you need to fall asleep at the right hours. To avoid these issues, it's a good idea to avoid blue light screens for at least an hour before bed. How about our eyes? Is staring at the same color for longer periods of time any good for us? Not really. If you look at one color for a long time, for starters, it can change the way you see other colors. Back in the day, people used old computer screens that featured a lot of green hues. Because they were exposed to this color a lot during a normal working day, they would see everything with a purple tint for a while after they stopped using the computer. The explanation is simple. The part of the eye that was responsible for seeing green got tired. It got compensated by other parts of the eye that were more rested, those responsible for the red and blue hues. What do you get when you combine red with blue? That's right, purple. These days, most people use computer screens that are white with black letters, so this problem doesn't happen as much. This change in our eyesight is also explained by the McCullough effect. It's a phenomenon that happens when people perceive a change in color of an object after it has been looked at for a long period of time. In 1965, Celeste McCullough found out that if you looked at colorful stripes for too long, it could affect how you saw things for months. Her experiment had people looking at colorful stripes, then at black and white ones. If you do this for long enough, you'll end up seeing the monochrome lines in color too. Just like how a camera flash can make your vision go blurry for a bit, this effect can last for a long time if you look at the stripes for too long. Does the color you stare at make any difference to your eyesight? Well, not really. There is no evidence to suggest that a certain color can trigger the McCullough effect. It's rather caused by a combination of factors, like changes in the way the brain processes visual information, fatigue of the eye muscles, and changes in the way the eye's retina responds to light. What about light? Exposure to some sunlight is important for our well-being, but you've surely heard this one since you were little. Don't stare directly at the sun. Is there really any evidence that it affects our eyes, or is it just another myth? Turns out, it is indeed dangerous. When you stare at the sun for an extended period, ultraviolet light enters your eyes. It then gets through the internal lens onto the retina and reaches the back of the eye. When this light-sensitive tissue is exposed to UV rays, it can get damaged. You'll end up seeing spots for longer than just a few seconds, or even have permanent eyesight damage. This process can happen quickly, even in just a few seconds of direct sun gazing. no.
Stop shouting.
Huh? You can speak? No! No, no, no!
Don't even try to escape.
Ah!
Wow. Okay, I got it. Jeez, no need to swing your fists here. These savages can't even eat in peace.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.